Chapter 415. Prompt. Your Battle Energy Secret Manual and Magic Hair Secret Manual have reached level 60. He only felt a thunderous roar within his body. Come, take off your clothes. Let me examine your body. Special effect. Health plus 8,000 2 hours. Bloodline potential. Legendary. Level 140 basic attributes plus 110%. Don't worry. I will leave the God's continent for a period of time. He did not know what dimension the Thunder World belonged to. He seemed to be floating in the air, but almost every inch of space around him was filled with lightning. Special effect. Power plus 60, physical strength plus 60, agility plus 60, intelligence plus 150. The players were shocked. Luck. 1. Cursed. The prince did not know how strong they were. William ignored it. He pushed open the back door and went to Moses' study and laboratory. He discovered a problem. He glanced at the black cat lying on the table and muttered, I don't know when the God's continent appeared, but the most ancient era was the mythological era. It was the era when the gods ruled the world. At that time, almost all the experts were gods. But he knew that the leader of the God's continent, the Pope of the Temple of Light, should not be weaker than the main gods. Others, yes, that was what he said. He said to all the sages of the God's continent in the next moment. 3 seconds later. Special effect. Endurance plus 5,500. The plus in brackets was the equipment attribute increase. Of course, none of the above would happen. The prince did not pay much attention to his physical condition. He only felt that his power was increasing. I'm still young and underage. I shouldn't use my brain too much. Otherwise, it would be sad if I go bald before I reach middle age. The prince caressed the black cat. Before it could react, he pushed open the door and left. He looked around in bewilderment. Prompt. Your endowment, Thunder Body Mutation, has advanced to Thunder Physique Mutation. Could it be that Moses has become a legendary boss? William was curious. When William read the letter and the last sentence, he could not help but feel warmth in his heart. There were 3 hearts in this letter. His eyes uncontrollably shot out 2 bolts of lightning. The distance was more than 2,000 meters, and this lasted for more than 10 seconds. Only then did the energy completely stop shooting out. He quickly stopped thinking. He had used too many brain cells and was about to lose his hair. That was because epic experts could only form an elemental body. William did not dare to read too much information. He was afraid that he would be cursed. When the prince opened the envelope, apart from the letter, there was also a ring. William stopped letting his imagination run wild because he realized that his body was starting to turn into an element. William Blackleaf, profession, Saint Soul Magister. In addition, those who had been there before were basically all dead. However, the Thunder Souls also had no intention of leaving the Sea of Thunder. But be careful. He felt as if he had turned into lightning. His skin, bones, hair, and every part of his body was being transformed by lightning. He didn't feel the pain of a breakthrough. This was one of the ultimate trump cards of epic experts. Prompt. You have obtained the talent, Beginner Elemental Body. As for how strong he was, William was not someone who would say such things. All the races in the God's continent, even the great dragons, were the slaves of the gods. During this advancement, he had completely forgotten about the time. He had completed his occupation, and his body uncontrollably started to advance. Recovery speed, 450 points per second. Are those the Thunder Souls? William inhaled a breath of cold air. He could feel the power of the Thunder Souls. It was as if each Thunder Soul had the aura and power of an epic expert. Prompt. Your endowment Grandmaster Magic Power has advanced to Epic Magic Power. 1 point of intelligence equals 1. 6 magic attack power. Prompt. You have advanced to the epic level. 4-dimensional attributes plus 100. Your health points plus 8,000. Your charm points plus 20. The density of the thunder element was almost explosive. It was as if the thunder element in the entire God's continent was not as abundant as the thunder element in the Thunder World. Endowment. Handsome, Thunder Constitution. Mutated, Beginner Elemental Body. The dense and surging thunder power continuously engulfed his body. Prompt. You have become a Realm Ranger and Saint Soul Magister in the Thunder Sea There were lifelike bolts of lightning. They flowed in the thunder sea as if they had souls. Occupation, Guardian of Dawn. Attribute, Thunder, level, legendary, but the elemental body also had differences in strength. The beginner elemental body could not completely eliminate its fatal weakness. William did not know. In his previous life, he had only reached the legendary level before he was defeated. The most important thing was, when he walked in, the first thing he saw was the Blood Dragon's dragon crystal that was placed on the accessory rack. There were a total of 8 other dragon crystals, and they seemed to have formed some kind of magic formation. Endurance points, 33211. But he had to take a look at the interface. After all, it was very important. Every professional who had advanced to the epic level would obtain an elemental body that belonged to them. The prince passed by this place and continued to walk further inside. As he walked. Moses had also said that as long as he did not take too many risks, it should not be a problem for him to break through to the next level. In particular, I heard the Thunder God say 2 words. Celestial race? TSK. I have added 160 points of agility to my physical strength. As expected, my health points have increased to more than 200,000. William felt extremely comfortable. From this moment onwards, he could be considered a true expert. Health points, 237472. The Thunder World was the hometown of the Thunder God. It was also the place where the Thunder God was born. Be careful. The Thunder World is the hometown of the Thunder God. There are thunder spirits in the Thunder World. Does that mean that the Thunder God's original body is a thunder spirit? Some parts of his body turn transparent blue. Agility, 2526. Thunder World. Omitted. William did not bother about it. He just waited quietly. Level 45/level 60. 3230/125300 experience. William, I'm about to become a great enchanter. But the method and difficulty of my breakthrough will cause a huge commotion. When the time comes, people will inevitably notice my existence. But in the next moment, in front of him, at a position about 100,000 meters away. Recovery speed, 450 points per second. Information kept popping up in the information box. Experience, 2333/3332425. Does that mean that the Thunder Spirit is the materialization of the Thunder element? Or that the gods are the children of heaven and earth? William's brain was working furiously. He wondered if Moses had calculated his luck value. Because this so-called endless sea of thunder, the Thunder World, was actually the hometown of the Thunder God. Elemental body. He did not dare to go near it. At the level of a sage, there was no weakness on his body. His head and heart were no longer fatal injuries. Signed, Moses, because the players had discovered a problem a long time ago. In these 3 versions, the number of times the players had seen William at the fortune-telling shop was definitely no less than a few hundred times. As for how to kill a sage, power, 2,781. Every time William entered the fortune-telling shop, he would lock the door. The lightning element had already turned into a boundless ocean with no end in sight. It was called the Endless Sea of Thunder by a few people, but no one knew its original name. Should I go now? William held the purple teleportation scroll in his hand. He hesitated for a while before placing the small bottle containing 10 drops of life potion in his mouth. Then he crushed the scroll. In his previous life, he had heard a sentence from a sage. Only a sage could completely condense a perfect elemental body. The Blood Moon, which wore a snow-white magical robe. She appeared in front of him, unlike her usual sexy appearance. Your Highness, Master asked me to leave a letter for you. Then, he did not have much contact with the Blood Moon, which quickly left. 1 hour? Battle energy points, 13,000/13,000 points. Physical strength, 1835. In the next second. Thunder World? Thunder Spirit? William stroked his chin and pondered. Once again, he had collected a lot of information about the gods. If one wanted to find the place where thunder and soul coexisted, one could crush one of the purple teleportation scrolls, and it would directly bring one there. William stuffed the letter into an envelope and placed it in the space ring. He finally understood why no one knew the location. It was targeted at epic and legendary experts. As long as they were beheaded, they would still die. It was just that they could not easily inflict fatal damage. He did not know how much time had passed. Of course, Saint's soul magic. He was not at the place where the thunder element was the densest. Charm, 303 plus 102. Little show, didn't they say that Prince William is still underage? His body became distorted. It was as if he had entered a space tunnel. His surroundings were endless darkness. As for those who were stronger than the sages, they were the god of light, the goddess of fortune, and the goddess of misfortune. They were the main gods. Can I assume that the gods are the messengers who represent the rules of heaven and earth? But the materialization of the rules allows them to have bodies? Actually, the gods are not a race. They're a group of people who are born and bred by heaven and earth. Are they considered gods? William's body was covered with lightning. It was as if he was burning with blue flames. His aura kept increasing. Special effects, power plus 90, physical strength plus 90, agility plus 90, intelligence plus 50, level 140. The basic attributes were as follows: frowny face magic points, 13,000 points. The elves, humans, Seraphin, and other races did not have any experts. Even if there were a few experts, they were not worth mentioning in front of the gods. As William thought about it, he suddenly pulled out a handful of hair. The players were curious. Why did he return to the City of Dawn instead of hosting the Chosen Child tournament? They did not want him to worry about her. They wanted him to be careful. Although some saints had fallen at that time, they were not killed by legendary bigwigs. Where did she go? William was stunned. It was no wonder that Moses had not appeared, even though he had been there for a long time. Special effects. Health points plus 9,000. Level. Legendary. It would also reduce the number of weaknesses. His limbs, torso, and most other parts of his body could be easily recovered. Even the Elven Queen, who was a sage. Prompt. Your endowment, intermediate flying skill, has been upgraded to advanced flying skill. You will consume battle energy to fly at a maximum speed of 600 kilometers per hour. From then on, epic experts could not only easily borrow elemental power. Are you done with the calculations? That Moses just left too. William scratched his head. After he left the alternate dimension, he sat on the boss chair in the fortune-telling shop and read the letter. I, the Supreme Pontiff of Light, can defeat a few hundred of you by myself. Intelligence, 1449, Sacred Dawn Battle Energy. William walked on the streets of the City of Dawn. Soon, he was followed by some crazy players. They were trying to get a strange encounter. The special attributes were as follows. When William opened his eyes again, he discovered that he had appeared in the Thunder World. If this place had only been 1,000 square meters, it was now at least 3,000 to 5,000 square meters. The most shocking thing was that the magic density here was more than 10 times higher than the outside world. Prompt. Your endowment, Grandmaster Life, has been upgraded to Epic Life. 1 physical strength equals 120 health points. A legendary expert had condensed an intermediate elemental body. The little black cat was curled up on the table, fast asleep. When William came in, it opened one of its eyes to take a look, then stretched its limbs and stretched its body, intending to go back to sleep. It did not play the role of a watch cat at all. Ding dong. Your goal is to break through to the next level. Once you enter, you just have to break through quickly and come back. Level 4565, 12/1237300. William slowly felt the changes in his body. Once he said that, he did not want to stay there for too long. But the prince did not even have the time to interact with the legendary Great Dragon. He was not interested in these players. The activated special effects and skills are as follows. This alternate dimension had become bigger. He felt the thunder elements in his body continuously increasing. Even his Saint Soul magic had undergone a qualitative change. Race, half-elf. As for Moses knowing about the Thunder World and having a way to enter, it confirmed that Moses was the reincarnation of a god. The pleasure of leveling up was getting more and more exaggerated. He did not have time to pay attention to the distant sea of thunder. Or one day, he first glanced at the space ring. There was a large pile of space teleportation scrolls. Among them were 2 purple scrolls. They seemed to be fixed-point teleportation scrolls. Not long after, William ignored the group of newbies and quickly walked to the fortune-telling shop. After he entered the shop, he immediately locked the door. Many players started gossiping again. The long-legged, ferocious, and female which smiled. I don't know where Master went. I only know that Master intends to step into the next realm, so he will be away for a period of time. As for this letter, it's to answer your questions. Some people had entered to search for the inheritance and relics left behind by the Thunder God, but most of them had died there, after an unknown period of time. From then on, the Pope of Light was called the Emperor of Coercion by the majority of players. Prompt: you have successfully changed occupations. There was a ding-dong. Oh, William sized up the Blood Moon, which could not help but sigh. She had such a sexy figure. Why did she wear a magic robe to conceal her charm? It was a waste of her body. Special effect: omitted. Age: 22. TSK. Prince William is really frequent. I wonder who is on the offensive and who is on the receiving end. Chapter 416. William scanned his attribute panel. He was elated. Mutated Thunder Body had been upgraded to Mutated Thunder Body. Not only had his Thunder attribute attacks greatly increased, but it had also made him extremely tanky. Every time an enemy attacked him, he could recover 4% of his health points, which was 9,400 plus health points. TSK. With the Keep Alive endowment, even if I stand motionless in the midst of the enemies and let them attack me for a day, I won't lose any health points, except for a little pain. His Royal Highness chuckled. His HP was still a few 100,000 lower than some meat shields, but in terms of defense and health recovery speed, he was definitely the best among the epic warriors. That was right. He was the super leader of the epic rangers. As for the new endowment, Beginner Elemental Body, it will increase my defense and attack by 20%. This is a good deal. But the key is the special effect of the Thunder Element Professionals, which is speed. The speed is very fast. It will increase my movement speed by 50%, and when the Battle Energy Shield is activated, it will increase by 30%. Then my flying speed will reach 1,080 kilometers per hour, which is 300 feet per second. But my agility is high. It will increase my movement speed and attack speed by a lot. I can now fly at supersonic speed. William lowered his head and looked at his fingers. He glanced at his tied boots. He did not intend to check his toes. After all, professional slippers were very tiring, even though he was using rune equipment. But if you didn't tie your clothes and shoes tightly, after a supercharge, you would find that all of your clothes and shoes would disappear completely. Even your underwear would be gone. Only his naked body would be left to show off. This was the key reason why foreign superheroes wore one-piece tights. It was very fast. The clothes would disappear. It was that simple. The Thunder Realm is a large-scale skill of the Thunder Element Professionals. It's similar to the forbidden spells of the enchanters. It's a super explosive, super buff, and abnormally long-lasting skill. There are no side effects. It's a must-use skill in team battles. This is also the key reason why the legions are unable to fight against the epic experts. Because once the realm is activated, even if the Grandmaster and advanced legions can survive the first wave of explosive damage, they won't be able to last long in the continuous domain attacks. William had experienced the false domain before. For example, when he faced the giant frost dragon, that frost domain's special effects were cold and deceleration. If it wasn't for the fact that it was a false domain with his original strength, he would have died without a doubt unless he used a space scroll to escape from the battlefield. Next, the prince glanced at the 3 new skills. Lightning Arrow. This was a decent ranger skill. Apart from normal damage, if it hit the enemy's weak point, it would deal 30% more true damage. If it was raised to the max level, it would be a godly skill that targeted tanks. The prerequisite was that the shot was accurate. After all, at the epic rank, true meat shields would have many damage reduction skills. If they didn't use skills that dealt true damage, they wouldn't be able to harm these bastards at all. Soul recovery. This skill is interesting. I can revive a corpse that has been dead for less than 24 hours. Not only can I control the corpse, but I can also interrogate it. Then, I can kill a giant dragon, revive it, and interrogate it about its hidden treasures. It's not a bad idea. William pondered for a while. This skill could trick people. As long as he killed the giant dragon discreetly, he could revive it without revealing his injuries. He could even trick people. What did this mean? The Metal Master could revive a small dragon to fight against a giant dragon. This skill was very cool. It made up for the problem of his sub-occupation becoming an enchanter but not being given forbidden spells. As for the unparalleled Holy Thunder, the meaning is obvious. I just have to imagine Lu Bu using the unparalleled Holy Thunder. The side effect is that all attributes will be reduced by 50% for a period of time. Let's see if there are any changes after leveling up. William had a general understanding of all the skills and endowments. He didn't pay attention to these skills. He had no choice. He had experience points. He needed about 50 million experience points to level up his character, secret manuals, and skills at the same time. And he needed more experience points to level up. William raised his head and looked at the endless sea of thunder. There were the thunder spirits, the thunder god's inheritance, and even his body. William didn't know what the thunder spirits were used for, but they should be alive and intelligent creatures. Should I go? Many people died there, including legendary experts, but they died to snatch the inheritance of the thunder god. But I'm different. I'm going there to inherit the inheritance. I met the thunder god before. We're brothers. I believe you. The prince sniffled and glanced at his thunder god's left hand. He muttered a few words and slowly approached the seemingly endless sea of lightning. As he neared the place, he could feel the majestic aura of the sea of thunder and the limitless energy that was condensed by the sea. He believed that if the sea of thunder appeared in the god's world, it would definitely cause a huge blow to the continent. It's no wonder that the thunder spirits can be born here. The thunder can condense into liquid. I can't imagine how rich the thunder elements are here. William muttered to himself. Swish! A stone that flashed with blue light suddenly flew towards him. William stretched out his left hand and grabbed it. Crackle, crackle. Countless electric sparks flashed continuously. After 7 or 8 seconds, the sparks completely disappeared. He used his insight. Thunder crystal, quality, legendary, material description. This small crystal contains rich thunder elements. Oh, I'm just about to doze off, and you're sending me a soft girl. William licked his lips and kept the crystal in his space ring. The thunder crystal was a good material for forging equipment. Under normal circumstances, it was rare to see such a thing in the god's world. But now that he had advanced to the epic level, his rune equipment had reached its limit. He could not level up again. William had originally intended to make an ordinary legendary equipment to deal with the situation. He would look for better equipment when he had the opportunity. But it was different now. With the Thunder Crystal, he could create elemental equipment. That was right. There were many types of equipment in the god's world. The most common type of equipment was made from metal. The quality of the equipment could reach the legendary level. But the equipment made from metal was considered real, and it was very difficult to wear it. In front of some top bosses, other than weapons, they would not wear this kind of armor. As for the other equipment, they had various benefits. For example, rune equipment could be integrated into the body and attached to the surface of the body at any time. For example, magical equipment could borrow the power of magical crystals. But magical equipment was exclusive to cannon gunners. Normal people could not afford it. Elemental equipment could also be integrated into the body. It was just that the production method was a little difficult. But if it was done well, it would definitely greatly increase the battle energy attributes of the professionals. As for ordinary legendary equipment, it could be embedded with attribute gems and enchanted. But compared to the rune equipment, it was more or less inferior. But this also widened the gap between the rich and poor epic players. William was not poor, but he knew how strong he was. Originally, he did not want to waste money. But now that the materials were everywhere, there was no reason not to collect them. When the time came, he just needed to find someone to forge a set of leather equipment for him. Therefore, he carefully entered the endless sea of thunder. Bolts of lightning and thunder struck his body, naturally causing some damage. He did not have a pure, perfect elemental body. The excessive lightning would definitely cause damage to him. But William recovered his health quickly. The various lightning attacks were not as fast as his recovery speed. He discovered that the lightning in the Sea of Thunder did not cause much damage to him. Most of the thunder spirits were still inside the Sea of Thunder. The prince could not help but start a play. He moved as fast as lightning and raced with the lightning in the Sea of Thunder. Not only did he chase the flying thunder crystals, but he could also take a bath in the Sea of Thunder from time to time. But each wave was higher than the one before. Sooner or later, one of the waves would hit him on the beach. William had been collecting thunder crystals for 2 to 3 hours. The space ring had piled up into a small mountain. It was enough to make 1.5 sets of equipment. But human greed was always endless. So, when he came back to his senses, he discovered that a group of thunder spirits had circled him and surrounded him. In the sky, on the ground, in all directions, there were all kinds of thunder spirits. Most of their bodies had irregular shapes. In other words, they did not know what they should look like. But when a thunder spirit looked at William for a long time, it transformed into a human. The surrounding thunder spirits also transformed into their human forms. William swallowed his saliva. This group of thunder spirits had a strong ability to imitate. All of them looked like him. If he brought them back to the gods' continent, people would definitely think that they were his illegitimate children. But there were too many of them. Anyway, he felt as if he had seen countless clones. The scene was very terrifying. The prince held the space scroll in his hand. If these asterisk stars dared to attack him, he would immediately escape. But he did not expect that. This group of thunder spirits was a group of imitators. Whatever he did, the thunder spirits would do. Look, it's a gray plane. William suddenly raised his head and pointed at the thunder spirits in the sky. Then he suddenly burst forth with supersonic speed and flew towards a place with fewer thunder spirits. Countless thunder spirits looked at the sky and pointed. One of the thunder spirits stretched out his hand. It seemed to have sensed the gaze of its companion and nervously changed its hand. His not-so-smart behavior seemed to have made the other thunder spirits very angry. But apart from that stupid thunder spirit, when William flew up, the other thunder spirits also flew at the same speed and direction. His Royal Highness flew for a long time, at the fastest speed he had ever flown. It was a pity that he still could not escape from the encirclement of the thunder spirits. Instead, he attracted more thunder spirits to join the encirclement. The distance between the two parties seemed to have shortened. William gradually fell into deep thought. He stroked his chin. Countless thunder spirits that looked like William also stroked their chins. William glanced at them. A group of thunder spirits also glanced at him. Gosh, such a strong aura. But you're looking in a different direction from me. You asterisk stars are shameless. William was exasperated as he pulled out a few strands of hair. The other thunder spirits wanted to pull out their hair. It was a pity. They were baldies. But it did not matter. Very quickly, they grew a head full of thunder elemental hair. They pulled out their hair happily. What's going on with this group of fellows? Are they a group of newborn babies? William was somewhat puzzled. Now, he completely understood. This thunder world should be the elemental world that he had heard of in his previous life. All the elements in the gods' continent had a symmetrical elemental world. Elemental creatures lived in it. William was a legendary player in his previous life, but he had never been there. It was not only because the location of the elemental world was difficult to find, but also because he did not have the time. In particular, he could not bear to waste time exploring. According to his thinking, it was far faster to bring rich people to explore instance dungeons and earn money. But no matter what, the situation seemed to be a little dangerous, because not only did this group of fellows imitate him, but they also started to approach him. 10,000 meters, 5,000 meters, 1,000 meters, 100 meters, 3 meters. William did not dare to move, but there was no need to be afraid. When he was 3 meters away, there were only 7 or 8 thunder spirits, which was not too many when the thunder spirits wanted to approach him, but was stopped by another thunder spirit with a stronger aura. William looked at the thunder spirit that looked similar to him. He did not know what to say, but at least he did not sense any hostility. But after a while, the thunder spirit with the strongest aura suddenly stretched out its hand and pointed at his left hand. William thought for a while and extended his left hand. The thunder spirit also stretched out its hand and touched William's left hand. At that moment, it was an electric shock. William was pleasantly surprised to discover that he seemed to have developed a telepathic connection with the thunder spirit. No, he had developed a telepathic connection with all the thunder spirits. They were like children who were only a few years old. He kept yelling, "Let me see. Let me see him. You're bullying him. Why are you surrounding him? If you want to monopolize this outsider, I'll fight with you." The aura of this outsider is similar to ours. Indeed, it's very similar. Although those fellows also had the aura of thunder, their essence was very different. But then again, they were very delicious. Gulp. William swallowed his saliva. Good Lord, not only were they killed, but they had also eaten the group of bosses. William could not help but feel lucky. If he did not have the left hand of the thunder god, he would have died in this place. William was surrounded. He did not want to move, and he did not dare to move, because the thunder spirit still did not let go of his hand. He was still holding it. William did not know if the thunder spirit wanted to forcefully lock him up or what. Anyway, William would not give in, but something unexpected happened again. The thunder spirit with the strongest aura suddenly asked the other fellows to make way for him. The thunder spirit pulled William's hand as if it wanted to bring him to a place. William obediently allowed himself to be pulled. Since this group of fellows did not want to kill him, it was very likely that they wanted to bring him to the place where the thunder god's body was. Am I going to be rich? Chapter 417. During the mythological era, the gods had many temples all over the world to compete for the believers of that era, regardless of whether it was the main gods or the ordinary gods. After the third era, most of the shrines that could be discovered had basically disappeared. The elves and humans were the heirs of these legacies. It was because of them that there were very few temples left. But the main temples of the thunder god, the fire god, and the other main gods had never been discovered. William did not expect that one day a thunder spirit would bring him to the main temple of the thunder god. This temple was located at the place with the densest thunder. What surprised him the most was the main temple was not as big as he had imagined. It was more like a small house for a commoner. Why did William think that this was the thunder god temple? It was written on the door. These were the only words that he could recognize. Furthermore, there weren't many defensive measures in the surroundings of this lightning divine hall, because the number of thunder spirits was too large. Hundreds of thousands of epic step thunder souls were the greatest defense of this place. Even if a legendary expert wanted to enter this place, it would be extremely difficult. He might even die under the attack of the endless thunder spirits. What about the sages? It could only be said the sages were comparable to the gods. When they came here, even the strongest defense measures were useless. The only way to prevent them from digging up graves was to use all means to prevent the location of one's home from being exposed. Because of the left hand of the thunder god, the thunder spirits thought that William was one of them. The thunder spirit with the strongest aura brought him into the thunder god temple. When William looked up, he could not help but gasp. The body of the thunder god. That was the body of the thunder god that had been eaten up. William could not help but shiver. He glanced at the thunder spirit beside him. Was the thunder spirit going to treat him as dinner? Brother, you're not benevolent. Let's talk nicely. Why treat me as food? My flesh is tough and not tasty at all. But the thunder spirit did not show any malice. It only let him enter the house and pointed at its mouth, trying to get him to eat the remaining body of the thunder god. What? William did not dare to believe it. Lei Ling didn't give any explanation to his question. It just patted him on the shoulder and used its consciousness to convey, absorb as much of his energy as possible to become stronger. He once took away our power. However, before he died, he brought back an even stronger power to us. This is what you deserve. It is what all of us deserve. After saying this, Lei Ling turned around and left. William was completely confused. However, he realized that these fellows treated him as one of their kind because of his left hand of the Thunder God. Following the departure of the lightning spirit, he no longer tried to copy his own appearance. Instead, he turned back into his previous irregular shape and happily wandered in the sea of lightning. The prince took a deep breath. He looked at the Thunder God's body, which was no longer shrouded in divine light. His body had almost been eaten. This Thunder God's body was a body of pure lightning energy. The fact that he could survive until now had a lot to do with the environment here and the strength of his main body. And the most important thing was, William couldn't imagine how powerful the Lord Gods were. A single person's body had allowed hundreds of thousands of Thunder Souls to enter the epic rank. It was unbelievable that the Thunder God hadn't been eaten yet. It was unbelievable. But then again, the Thunder God was very particular. Even in death, he took care of his kin. William stroked his chin and glanced at his left hand. Even though the Thunder God's body had been gnawed out of shape, the location of his severed left hand was still very obvious. William couldn't imagine who had chopped off his left hand, but it was very likely that the person who had chopped off his left hand was the same person who had killed him. William couldn't help but mutter to himself, "What kind of existence can kill the Thunder God and the Lord Gods? But how do I absorb the Thunder God's body?" William didn't think too much. He just scratched his head. Was he going to use his teeth? His teeth would definitely fall off. In particular, he didn't see the location of the Godhead. He was slightly disappointed, but the Godhead should be the most powerful body of energy. It was also the key reason why the body had survived until now. Therefore, the group of Thunder Souls hadn't finished eating the Thunder God's body even after so many years. Now, the energy of the Godhead had finally been exhausted. And there was a very important point. William understood from the Thunder Souls' words that they wanted him to absorb as much of the Thunder God's energy as possible. In other words, for the group of Thunder Souls, there was a limit to the amount of energy they could absorb. This was also the key reason why the Thunder God's body had survived until now. What about me? How much can I absorb? William gulped. He placed the bottle of life potion in his mouth and slowly stretched out his left hand. At that moment, it was an electric shock. It was the feeling of their souls meeting. It was the feeling of their bodies colliding with each other. Then William couldn't help but widen his eyes. He watched as the majestic energy of the Thunder God's body flowed through his left hand and into his body. No, it wasn't flowing into his body. It was changing his left arm. The unbelievable pure thunder energy was slowly increasing the length of the Thunder God's left arm. It was trying to turn his entire arm into the Thunder God's left arm. William didn't move. Time continued to pass. He didn't know how much energy he had absorbed from the Thunder God's body, but he still didn't see the Thunder God's body decreasing. But the transformation speed of his God's right arm was also very slow. After all, it wouldn't be easy to completely transform the arm into the Lord God's right arm. But the most fortunate thing was that William had an unpleasant experience of losing health points when he fused with the Thunder God's left arm. So this time, his health points didn't continue to drop. It seemed that he had adapted to this transformation method. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to drink more life potion because he couldn't control his body. 1 hour passed. The transformation of the first half of William's arm was completed. 2 hours passed. The second half of his arm was being transformed. 3 hours passed. His Thunder God's left arm was completed. But when the Thunder God's energy continued to transform his body, the difficulty kept increasing. William also discovered that he could move a little. So he slowly touched his right hand to the remaining Thunder God's body. Crack! It was another electric shock, as well as a kind of numbing sensation. But the pure energy did not cause him any harm. Instead, it was trying to transform his right arm into the God's right arm. This transformation didn't cause him any discomfort. In fact, it felt good. He wanted to scream. Time passed. The transformation continued. It seemed that 6 or 7 hours had passed. When the Thunder God's body completely disappeared, not even the bones were left, William's God's right arm was also completed. William sat on the ground. He had finally regained his freedom. But he looked at his left arm and right hand. He couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. The transformation seemed to have failed. If he had the ability, he could transform both of his arms into the god's arms. There was no problem with his left arm. But when his right arm was transformed to the wrist, the thunder god's body no longer had any energy. Even though the substantial bones had been transformed into energy, the transformation was still incomplete. It could only be said that this broken thunder god's body didn't seem to have much energy left. Scum. William stood up. The thunder god's body was gone. It had completely disappeared. He didn't discover any remnant soul. Perhaps the remnant soul of the thunder god that had appeared in the temple on Stormy Island was the true inheritance left behind by the thunder god. But the reincarnation of the thunder god didn't take it away, and William wasn't recognized. The thunder god's body was used by the thunder god to repay some debts. There's no reason for you to be so stingy. This is your hometown. Can't you leave behind 2 godly weapons? William stood up. He used his large eyeballs to try and find something that could be of use to him. After all, there was nothing much to say about the thunder god's left arm and right arm. He had possessed them before. Now he just had a little more. It would definitely increase his combat power, but there was no qualitative change. At most, his digging speed would be much faster in the future. It would be more than twice as fast. Perhaps even the legendary big shots wouldn't be able to catch up with him. They could only eat dirt behind him. It had to be said, this was a very sad story. If the great thunder god discovered that his energy transformation could only make him think of digging holes, he would probably cry to death. This house had 2 bedrooms and a living room. The thunder god's body was in the living room. The other 2 bedrooms were the study room, and the living room was the thunder god's living room. William first entered the sleeping quarters of the thunder god. The thunder god didn't need to sleep. There was a bed in the room. William started to rummage through the cupboards. He tried to find the godly weapons. Nothing. He rummaged under the bed, but there was nothing. The thunder god didn't seem to need anything. But according to William's realm, he really didn't need anything. William walked into the study room. He finally found something that was worth taking. It was the books on the bookshelf. William didn't care what was recorded in the books. He didn't even let go of the bookshelf. He put everything into the space ring. There were a total of 360 books. Those books recognized him, but he didn't recognize those books. He couldn't understand any of the words in them, so he didn't know what he had taken away. He only hoped that when Moses returned, he could identify some thunder element skills that he could learn. Just as he was a little disappointed and was about to leave, a saber was placed on the side of the desk, shining brightly. But he didn't see it. It had to be said. It gave people the feeling that the more one wanted to find something, the more one couldn't find it. The moment William held the sword in his hand, buzz, a dense thunder, sword energy pierced through the roof and soared into the sky. William saw the name of the sword. Thunder/the legendary. Oh, it had the same name as his thunder/skill. It wasn't a godly weapon, and it wasn't a godly weapon. But it should be a weapon used by the thunder god at the legendary level. Chapter 418. William had the growth sword of Hegni, which was also the sword of curses. According to the attack power, the sword could pierce armor and destroy equipment. It was a very powerful weapon, but this sword could not give him the bonus of thunder attributes. This was more difficult to bear. But the new thunder slash was different. Although it was a legendary long sword, William could easily hold it and use it because both of his hands were the left hands of the thunder god. It was simple. William was an epic professional, but he could use the weapon of a legendary expert. But there were limitations to using it forcefully. Thunder slash, legendary level, legendary position level, legendary creator, thunder god materials, unknown attack power, 6300-9500 power, plus 180 physical strength, plus 130 agility, plus 100 intelligence, plus 50 weight, 23. 8 kg length, 145 cm durability, 13200 usage requirement, 3000 plus power usage requirement, a legendary professional usage restriction. If a non-legendary professional uses a special method to use this weapon, it will be very difficult to achieve the highest damage. Chain lightning. Passive, you can borrow the power of the lightning element to cause each of your attacks to be imbued with chain lightning. Each enemy's attack can be reflected up to 3 times. The damage of each chain lightning is equivalent to your own lightning attribute. Enemies who are hit by the chain of lightning will be affected by the thunder, paralysis, and other negative buffs. If you attack an enemy with the thunder buff, you can detonate the thunder and cause a critical hit. Enemies who are affected by the thunder buff will not be able to generate another thunder buff within 20 seconds. Range: 80 meters thunder explosion. Passive, every attack of this weapon will cause an additional 1,300 points of true damage. Thunder Fury. Passive, when you attack an enemy with a negative thunder buff, 20% of the damage caused will recover the same amount of health points. Thunder Flash. Active, when an enemy has any thunder buff, you can turn into lightning and attack him. Range: 3,000 meters cooldown. 30 seconds Thunder Slash. Active, you can swing your sword at lightning speed and cause 38,000 plus. Thunder Attribute X 500%. Damage to all enemies in a straight line. If you hit an enemy with a negative thunder buff, besides the critical hit, you will also cause an additional 8,000 points of true damage. Range: 1,500 meters cooldown. 1 hour. Description: a legendary weapon that doesn't seem to have any special effects, but if you use it well, all of its attacks will be AoE. He wanted to understand the equipment. First, he had to understand what the basic attribute of thunder was. William was a thunder-type professional, so his battle energy secret book, endowment, and equipment would give him the basic thunder attribute damage. Professionals with other attributes would also have corresponding attribute damage. What was the prince's lightning damage? About 8,000. Therefore, he had many thunder attribute X 300%, 400%, and 500% skills. That was to say, every time William attacked, besides basic damage, physical damage, and weapon damage, he would also deal 8,000 points of thunder damage. Every time he made a move, it would be accompanied by a large amount of lightning damage. When he first saw the attributes and skills of this equipment, he felt that it was only SOSO. However, when the effects of the lightning attribute and lightning appeared, this saber was practically tailor-made for him by the Thunder God. One sentence. The purpose of this saber was to cut people. Apart from Thunder's Fury, which could recover HP by slashing people, all of the skills had explosive damage and true damage. Among them, the negative buff of the lightning was simply awesome. As long as he used the chain lightning properly and detonated it, the effect would not be inferior to any Thunder-type forbidden spell. The Thunder Flash was also very awesome. It was equivalent to teleporting once every 30 seconds, unless they did not have any Thunder buff. After all, as he leveled up, he could no longer use the Space Scepter. His intelligence was not enough. However, William had thought of a solution. If it was a group battle, he would first use his weapon to create the negative buff of the lightning. Then, he would constantly expand the battlefield so that more people would be hit by the chain lightning and the lightning buff would appear. Then, he would find the most suitable opportunity. He would directly activate the Thunder Domain. It could be said that, under the damage of the Thunder Domain and lightning explosion, those who did not have 80,000 to 90,000 health points would basically be dead. It was a super area of effect attack. Of the 3,000 Grandmaster Legion, at least 2/3 of them would die under this wave of attack. The epic professionals would definitely be able to withstand it, but with this series of attacks, they would at least lose a lot of health points. And this was under the situation where he did not use too many skills. After 20 seconds, when he attacked again, the group of people would be hit by the lightning effect again. Then, what he had to do was to continuously detonate the lightning and deal critical damage over and over again. TSK. In this situation, besides the shield bearers, only the Thunder-type professionals can withstand it. William smacked his lips and happily kept the weapon in the space ring. As for the limitations of this weapon, it was difficult for him to deal the highest damage. Then he would deal the lowest damage. He knew in his heart how much luck he had. Anyway, the lowest damage of this weapon was 6,300. It It was not the highest among the epic weapons, but it was not the lowest either. Moreover, this did not include his basic attack, which was the bonus brought by his power. William searched the room 3 to 5 times, but he did not find any additional gains. He did not intend to stay here for long. Anyway, he was considered familiar with the Thunder World. He could come again in the future. The Thunder Spirits treated him as one of them, so he could treat this place as his backyard. The only pity was that he was not a pure NPC. He had to rely on experience to level up. Otherwise, if the Thunder-type professionals trained here, their advancement speed would be explosive. He crushed a teleportation scroll. William appeared in the city of Dawn again. The aura of an epic expert spread in all directions. 3 seconds later, his #1 personal guard, Douglet, and the gold dragon, Gerald, appeared in front of William. Both of their eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, and they also congratulated him. But Brother Jia's eyes showed a hint of sadness. After all, Brother Jia wanted to trick William's dust dragon. The stronger William was, the lower the chances of him tricking the dust dragon. Moreover, William's growth speed was so fast that he changed his mind about tricking the dust dragon. I didn't expect Prince William to become an epic professional so quickly. It's a pity that Princess Alice isn't here. Otherwise, she would be very happy to know that Prince William is so outstanding. Douglet did not participate in the 10 Years' Blood War. He was William's trump card in the City of Dawn. I also hope that my mother knows that I've become an epic professional. Do you know how many days I've been away? 12 days. William's mouth twitched. He knew that the time flow was different, but he did not expect it to be so different. His job advancement this time had caused him to miss out on the Heaven's Chosen Child competition. He didn't know who had won in the end, so he did not stay for long. He chatted with the Gold Dragon Gerald for a while and hurried back to the extreme north. The 10 Years' Blood War was not over. The humans and elves had occupied all the orc fortresses, but everyone knew that the most difficult thing to conquer was the Black Great Wall in front of them. If there were no accidents, after the elves and the human alliance took a short break, they would launch another attack on the Orc Empire. It was a pity that the players were going to undergo a version update, and William would lose this group of suicidal soldiers. This version update lasted for a long time. It had been 5 years. The next time they came, they would have to face 2 main storyline missions. First, the war between the Desert Kingdom and the Red Fire Kingdom. Second, the Dark Tide, the second full-scale invasion of the Dark World. This time, without the support of the Dark World, the human Grand Duchies would fall. Or rather, if this 10 Years' Blood War did not end prematurely with the participation of the City of Dawn and the Frost Empire, it would be considered a super main storyline mission. Overall, 5 years from now, the world of gods would be filled with calamities no matter which continent it was. Because after the Second Darkness invasion, the chaotic war in the gods' world would begin. Countless hidden forces would also surface. The repeated battles between the godly slaying temple and the reincarnations of the gods would appear in front of the players. The aliens, who were from the 3 moons, were secretly supporting certain forces and stirring up trouble. Large and small countries and lords would start a fight for territories. As for the ambitious Serafkin, who wanted to become the ruler of the 4th era, they would send millions of angels to carry out the first step of their plan. Overall, the prelude to the war of the 4th era, it was about to begin. In this initial super vortex, if the human kingdoms and empires did not have the resources and power, they would be trapped in the quagmire. If they were not careful, they would be dragged into the water, and not even a single bubble would emerge. What William had to do was very simple. Conniving nonstop. In the past 5 years, besides completing some side missions in his free time, he would basically fight to the death on the Black Great Wall. As long as he could increase the affinity of the elves, he would not have to worry about the sages and legendary bosses of the City of Dawn destroying the City of Dawn. The premise was he had to show his loyalty to the elves and the benefits that he would bring to the elves. He arrived at the Snow Elven capital. William immediately opened the forum. Heaven's Chosen One. These 4 big words were practically everywhere. and the name of the player behind Chosen One. He did not expect it. This player was the captain of the Glory Club, Chu Yochio. D*MN. How is this possible? Why is this guy's luck so high? This doesn't make sense. William believed that he would be able to achieve a good result in a 1v1 duel with average attributes. There were unlimited 1v1 arena matches. There were also 1,000 arena matches. It was not based on strength because the players did not have the bonus of bloodline attributes. In the unregulated arena tournament, William had already predicted that some rich players would use forbidden spells, and this had allowed this bald, middle-aged man to obtain the title of Chosen One. William did not dare to believe it. D*MN. It's not that I'm looking down on Chu Yochio. I just did not expect him to be so lucky. William grinned. But this time, the Chosen One tournament, he had also achieved some of his goals. It was to let some passerby players gain more exposure, so that more ordinary players would like to stay in the City of Dawn. There were 3 types of tournaments. For each tournament, there would be rewards and publicity for the top 3, 10, and 100 players. The top 3 of the 3 types of arena matches were basically taken by the passerby expert players. As for Chu Yochio, the type of competition he was best at was the 1v1 arena tournament, where the stats were average and the items were limited. The first place was a passerby player called Peerless Sword. When William was training with him, he had fought with him. He was very strong, and he would rather die than become a professional player. But no matter what, Chu Yochio was a person who was good at strategy and battle techniques. He had once proven himself. But according to the next 2 versions, Chu Yochio seemed to have gone downhill in the professional arena for some reason. He was cursed by the fans for 2 years. Until the 6th version, when he once again led the Glory Club to win the championship trophy, he was forgiven by the fans. In short, if you win, you're awesome, but if you lose, you're trash. Professional competitions are so realistic. But in the arena, the winner is the king. There is no reason for the loser. But from then on, he no longer participated in professional competitions. He quit the club and did not even want to be a coach. He started to mingle with the passerby players. William sighed. This was what professional competitions were like. They were all young people's livelihood. It was not easy for Chu Yochio to compete in 3 virtual online games and still be at his peak. After all, his hairline had risen to the back of his head. If not for the hairstyle in the game, he would have died of laughter when he fought with others. What was the reward for the Chosen One tournament? Besides Chu Yochio, all the other contestants had received it. This caused him to feel very uneasy. He had won first place, but the prince did not appear at the end of the tournament. Chu Yochio, who did not receive the reward, often made mistakes in the recent training matches. He was in a daze, but when he was in the 6th training match of the day, someone transmitted a message to him that the prince had returned. At the same time, a message appeared on his information panel. William asked him to receive the reward. At that moment, Chu Yochio immediately informed everyone. A post about the reward for the Chosen One was released on the forum. In a short span of 10 minutes, the Elven Plaza became crowded. William stood on the high ground and closed his eyes as he waited for Chu Yochio. But at this moment, countless players exclaimed in surprise. Epic! Prince William has become an epic veteran. Gosh, how can he obtain Prince William's equipment? The gap is getting bigger. No wonder he didn't appear after the Chosen One tournament. He want to break through. TSK. It must be very difficult to break through after 12 days of seclusion, right? At the same time, Chu Yochio squeezed into the crowd and stood in front of William. He wanted the others to be envious of him. William raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "I'm sorry, I can't suppress my battle energy and magic power for a few days. I had to break through and advance to the epic level." Chu Yochio. The Chosen One. This is your reward. Swish. A set of advanced metal legendary equipment floated in front of Chu Yochio. It was a shimmering remnant page of a legendary secret manual. It was Diablo's secret training manual. It was an advanced metal legendary longsword. In addition, William had fabricated the title Chosen One for him. The 4 shining golden words were directly stuck to his head. All attributes plus 40. Attack power and defense power increased by 500 points. This was a lot for an advanced professional. But the most important thing was the golden title. It was too awesome and dazzling. For a moment, countless players were stunned. The reward for the chosen one was extremely envious. In one sentence, Chu Yochio had just become an advanced professional, and he had graduated. But there was a sentence that kept echoing in the minds of the players. What was that? He couldn't suppress the surging battle energy and magic power in his body. Gosh, Prince William, you broke through so quickly. Was it because you were suppressing yourself? Chapter 419. Far away in the war-ending empire, a Thunder Grandmaster professional, after defeating an enemy who had sneak-attacked him, he immediately turned around. He looked at the sky with a complicated gaze. He did not care about the equipment of the corpse at his feet. He did not care why the god-killing temple had found him. He just felt a little heartache. Why? He felt as though he had lost everything. It was as though his body had been hollowed out. It was as though his kidneys were weak. Thor, are you all right? I just heard some movement over here. A young man wearing the standard armor of the halting War Empire Academy quickly ran over. The young man quickly kept the corpse in his space ring and smiled. I'm fine. I was struck by lightning again. Just as he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning flashed. Bang! Thor fell to the ground. In the next second, his body was covered with electric sparks. He quickly got up. His friend looked as if it was a common occurrence, but he didn't dare to approach him. He sighed and said, I don't know if you cuckolded the god of thunder in your previous life. Our dean is a famous legendary grand magus of the empire, but even he couldn't solve this problem of yours. Thor was speechless. Cuckolded myself? But your advancement speed is too fast. It has only been a few years, and you've become a grandmaster professional. You might be the only student in the capital college to become an epic professional before graduating. That's fast. It's all right. Thor shrugged. The young man on the side was speechless. Others might not know, but he knew that Thor had been suppressing his dochi all along. Otherwise, he might have become a domain expert. How many years had Thor trained? A total of 4 years. As a powerful and influential epic expert, William could set up titles for the players. He could give out many titles, but he rarely used this privilege. After all, the rarer something was, the more valuable it was. If he gave out too many titles, the players would think that the titles were worthless. William rarely gave out titles other than for activities and large-scale missions. As for his bragging, which was the problem of him suppressing his battle energy, it was up to the players to believe it. That was right. If one wanted to deceive others, he had to deceive himself first. He still remembered a saying, no matter how untrustworthy the lie was. But as long as you treat others as fools and deceive them, you will succeed. Why did he treat others like fools? And if you treat them as fools, you will be confident. This kind of confidence from the inside out will make some people involuntarily develop a sense of trust, whether it was the real world or the magical world. The highest level of deception was to treat others as fools. After William handed all the rewards to Chu Yochio, he disappeared from the player's sight. After all, he had already reached epic rank. He had to maintain a sense of mystery in front of the players. If he could avoid revealing himself, he would do so as much as possible. In particular, every time he appeared, he would have to give them some benefits, or he would just have to show off a little. It was enough for him to be stunning every time he appeared. Version 3.0 was about to end. The Orc Empire's 18 fortresses were all captured. During this short break for the NPCs, the Players' World Finals were about to begin. The attention on the forum was focused on the major clubs and professional players. William did not issue any more missions. However, he still planned to fleece them one last time. High-grade equipment was being sold at a huge discount. Many of them were throwaway equipment used by NPCs, and the lowest was a gold set equipment. The City of Dawn had specially created a set of silver equipment for the players. As for blue, iron, and white equipment, sorry, there was nothing. The advanced players were also very sad. The version update was about to happen. The faction exchange list refreshed with a new wave of low-grade equipment. Should they exchange? MMP. Who knew if the City of Dawn would be destroyed by Prince William after the next version update? If they did not spend some contribution points and gold coins, it would be a loss when the faction was gone 5 years later. Although they knew that these equipment could not be used for long, they had already become advanced professionals. Wouldn't it be too embarrassing to use middle-level equipment? Hence, in just a few days, the group of players who had just earned a lot from the mission rewards sent tens of millions of gold coins back to William. Sigh, more than 40 million gold coins. TSK. I've earned a lot again. William laughed. Where did this group of players get their mission rewards from? Of course, it was from the elves. The elves issued missions and rewards to William. William distributed the missions and rewards to the players. For example, when the elves issued a mission, each player would be given 10 gold coins. Of course, as an outstanding legendary lord, William would take 2 gold coins from the players for their physical and mental health. He wanted the players to have a good gaming environment and a good economic system. He also wanted the players to understand that it was not good to spend money recklessly. Each player would take 2 gold coins. 8 million players would be 6 million gold coins. Wave after wave of missions were issued. William did not know how many gold coins he had taken from missions now. The players had to use the gold coins to purchase the low-grade equipment in the City of Dawn. Let's put it this way. Not only were the players working for William for free, but they were also helping him earn money. They were also spending money to purchase the obsolete equipment of the regular legions. What is this? Good people. They're all good people. William carefully calculated the benefits that this war had brought him. William plucked his fingers. It's about 180 million gold coins. In addition to the profits that the 3 cities have brought me in the past year, it's about 230 million gold coins. This was only in terms of gold coins. It did not include other resources. When a version update comes, it's time to expand the City of Dawn. The number of legions will increase. There are about 200,000 reserve legions on Stormy Island. After the version update, they will accept missions to exterminate the Devil's Den in the legendary continent. First, they will increase their level. There were 250,000 regular soldiers in the City of Dawn. 70,000 of them had been in the extreme north for a long time. After fighting for half a year, almost all of them had become advanced professionals. This was the strongest force under William's command. As for the remaining 180,000 regular soldiers, 50,000 of them guarded the City of Dawn, the East Sea metropolis, and the City of Green Light. The other 130,000 regular soldiers were in the form of mercenaries. They completed various military missions for the human grand duchies and kingdoms. Other than that, the Dawn mercenary team was not exclusive to the players. Many free and undisciplined NPCs knew that the City of Dawn dominated the mercenary market. There were more than 180,000 NPCs in the Dawn mercenary team. Many of them were advanced and Grandmaster NPCs. However, most of these NPCs were doing missions in the human kingdoms. Although the rewards of the 10 years of Blood War were high, these NPCs were terrified when they heard that they were going to war with the Orc Empire. In any case, it was enough that these NPC mercenaries could bring benefits to William. Although these NPCs did not dare to start a war with the empires, they would not be left behind when William started a war with the Desert Kingdom. William stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the sky. 5 years later, the entire legendary continent will be in chaos. Wars will break out everywhere. When that time comes, the City of Dawn will show its strength. I have to create a strong army and let all the forces that hire the Dawn mercenary team understand one thing. Hiring the Dawn mercenary team will mean victory. William had become an epic, but he did not dare to go around casually. His equipment had not been upgraded. Besides the Thunder Slash that he had obtained, the rune equipment that he was wearing was not good enough. It could not withstand an epic battle. Basically, it would explode while fighting. However, His Royal Highness was born to befriend others. William found a legendary enchanter of the Snow Elves. He took out sufficient thunder crystals and various rare materials and asked him to help him make a set of equipment. The enchanter glanced at William's handsome face. He did not say anything. He agreed immediately. As for the cost of making the set, what? William was a prince who had traveled all over the world. He wanted to make equipment for him. Not only did he not pay, but he also wanted to collect money? Ahem. Of course, no one was willing to work for free. Moreover, he was a legendary boss. Although it was a skill to make friends, William still took out extra thunder crystals as the cost of making the equipment. In this way, not only did the legendary boss have a good impression of William, but he could also happily make equipment for him. It was a win-win situation. Anyway, William felt that it was a win-win situation, but no one noticed. William had been in the Snow Elven capital for half a year. He had visited all the legendary and epic bosses of the 3 elven tribes. He did not say much. Every legendary big shot had at least 200 plus favorability points toward him, and some of them even had 600 plus favorability points toward him. It was not only because of his reputation, but also because of the hard work of the City of Dawn and the wars. As for the impact, the more time passed, the clearer the effects of being handsome. As for Burn Cinder, Diablo, Violent Dragon, and the rest, they had also grown at an extremely fast speed through the battles. To the NPCs, wars were a catalyst for experience points. Every battle would give them a lot of experience points. Killing enemies of the same level would also give them a lot of experience points. In addition, the magical stones that William had obtained were all given to this group of people for their training. Among William's many trusted subordinates, only Old Leather rarely participated in battles. But Old Leather's growth was not slow either. It was because he had become the disciple of Kieran. Kieran was a time enchanter. His knowledge and understanding of time magic was far superior to that of ordinary people. Kieran was forced to stay in the city by Queen Bernice to teach the elves about time. It was enough to show how powerful his knowledge of the time rule was. Old Leather was also his personal disciple. During the half a year of learning, Old Leather had benefited a lot. William had met Old Leather a few times. It had to be said, perhaps Old Leather would become the second epic expert after William. Time Sword Sage. William grinned. Only when time and space professionals reached the epic level could they have unimaginable combat power. They could even suppress other elemental professionals. It was not a joke to say that time and space were the rulers. It was very powerful. He could already imagine how much help Old Leather would be to him if he became a time professional of the epic rank. Besides expanding the Dawn Army, it's time to set the next goal in the 5-year version update. Chapter 420. At the Dawn Fortress. At this moment, there were very few players here. If they weren't offline, they were AFK. Most of the players were watching the World League tournament. William stood on the city wall, facing the snowstorm. He looked at the orc soldiers on the Black Great Wall. The word epic represents power. It means that even if I leave the City of Dawn, I will have a high status in the Legendary Continent, and even the Gods Continent. No matter which power I join, it will be the same. He placed his hands on the cold armrests and gently tapped his fingers. Pom, 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 pom. Many holes appeared. William lowered his head and looked at his hands. He had to control them. Otherwise, he would lose his nimble fingers. Not only would he lose the accuracy of his arrows, but he would also hurt. Ahem. Anyway, my future will be determined by how far I can develop in the next 5 years. 1. I will become the leader of a powerful power. 2. If I can't stand firm in a chaotic war, I will lose the City of Dawn. In other words, the power of the City of Dawn will be limited. Even if the City of Dawn survives the chaotic war, it will only be a kingdom-level power. I want the City of Dawn to become a human empire, or even a power that surpasses the human empires. What do I lack? William liked to lay out his problems so that he could see them more clearly. Foundation, Sage, Legendary, Territory, and the number of commoners. I lack these. If I want to become a human empire-level power, what do I need the most? William tilted his head. He could not help but pout. Suddenly, he said in a deep voice, Territory. Territory represents resources. The number of commoners in the territory also represents the number of professionals. I have no way of obtaining a foundation unless I become the Elven King or find the temple in my memory. But I can do the former. It's too difficult for me to become the Elven King with my status as a half-elf. The latter is too dangerous. It might attract the attention of many people. Sages are like nuclear bombs. As long as I don't provoke empire-level power, I don't need to worry about not having the support of sages. Legendary experts. The City of Dawn did not have any of them, but it did not mean that they would not exist in the future. At least my trusted subordinates and those in the Dawn College who have legendary bloodlines have great potential. Many of them think that my mother has not left the City of Dawn. I reckon that she can still hide for some time. However, the territory is the most important. The territory limits the resources, the number of civilians, and the development potential of the City of Dawn. William stood alone at the top of the city wall and muttered to himself. No one dared to approach him. The City of Dawn belongs to the neutral camp. Under my deliberate guidance, many forces believe that I'm a mercenary trader who relies on war to make a fortune. That's the truth. However, His Royal Highness narrowed his eyes. There will be wars in every version in the future. You can see it as me using war to fuel war. But I didn't want to rely on the human empires. Because of the elves' background, the development of the City of Dawn was restricted. I can't attack other human territories, so I can only instigate them to start a war in secret to obtain benefits. Fortunately, I'm not the only neutral faction in the legendary continent. In the future, my target is basically them. Of course, if they want to develop, their target will definitely be me. If the neutral camp overturned the neutral camp, would they be restrained and restricted by the human empire? Yes and no. This was because many neutral camps were located near the borders of the human nations. They more or less had a close relationship with the human nobles and factions. You may see it as a small fish, but after you catch it, you'll find that there might be a huge shadow hidden under the water. If the City of Dawn really wanted to attack the neutral camps, it would naturally attract the attention and anger of the human empires. But at this time, it would depend on one's connections and one's own strength. If the neutral camp had a good relationship with the human empires, the other side would not dare to attack. Otherwise, the human empires would let the neutral camp fight as they pleased. No matter how the neutral camp fought, even if the neutral camp was a dragon, it would have to coil up. But the City of Dawn wanted to be a prostitute and establish a chastity. It was a little difficult, because what was this? William wanted to use his identity as a neutral lord and mercenary to participate in wars to obtain benefits. Then, he would defeat the neutral lords to obtain greater benefits. He wanted to maintain his neutral camp status so that others would not beat him up. He wanted to fish in troubled waters. Gosh, this was equivalent to King the enemy's wife. Not only was the enemy not angry, but he even gave his sister, who was easy to push down, to him. Moreover, he just watched from his side without making a move. Was this possible? It was possible. After all, reality was more difficult to imagine than novels, but it would be very difficult to execute it. If not for the handsome prince, who was full of confidence in his unparalleled looks, he would not have the courage to daydream. But the endowment of being handsome was too awesome. He had no choice but to fantasize about it. William took out the map of the southern region. The City of Dawn was in the southernmost area. The west side was close to the Blackleaf Forest. The Blackleaf Forest was the territory of the Blackleaf Elves. William could forget about it. He could just secretly mine when he had nothing to do. The Black Lava Grand Duchy was in the north. Now, this nation was completely secretly controlled. Some human kingdoms, such as the Lion Kingdom and the Red Fire Kingdom, had discovered the abnormality. But because of William's identity and the cooperative relationship between the City of Dawn and William, they did not expose him. But if the prince wanted to do this, not to mention the human kingdoms, the human empires would not allow it. So what was the direction of his development? North of the East Sea Metropolis, near the Lion Kingdom, in the super-neutral camp south of the war-ending empire. It was the Beast Castle that had 3 legendary great dragons. When William went to the headquarters of the Temple of Light, he had befriended the deputy city lord of the Beast Castle. Both parties had made a few transactions. The Beast Castle had cheated a lot of money from William. The dragon-blooded warhorses and griffins were very important, as they had greatly increased the combat power of the City of Dawn. But the Beast Castle had cheated William of his money. That was their original sin. How did the Beast Castle lose? William said heavily. They secretly sold young dragons and dragon eggs. After this news spread, this resulted in one dragon leaving the citadel. The other destroyed half of the citadel before leaving in a fit of rage. Even the last legendary great dragon was full of complaints about the Beast Castle. Although he did not leave, he did not help the Beast Castle in some future battles. If the legendary ancestor of the Beast Castle did not establish a good friendship or contract with the three legendary great dragons, the Beast Castle would have been destroyed. I want to solve the problem of the Beast Castle. I want to get those beast tamers and magical beasts. Now, there's only one way, and that's to buy dragons. William narrowed his eyes and smiled. What he needed to do was to buy a dragon and spread the news from the side. Of course, he cannot do this openly. In the future, he would not dare to do business with the City of Dawn. But what if it was a coincidence? What if William's family had a legendary golden dragon who happened to know the legendary great dragon of the Beast Castle? Of course, the operation would be very complicated. It would be so complicated that it would seem like a coincidence. It would be so complicated that outsiders would think that the City of Dawn was the victim and the Beast Castle was the deceiver. This was the safest method. After all, the Beast Castle had a long history of selling young dragons and dragon eggs. In William's previous life, if the players did not spread the news, they would have continued to sell the eggs secretly. In particular, the dragon eggs sold by the Beast Castle were very deceptive. They often sold bad eggs, or even dragon eggs. Who knew how many forces were deceived by them? Because the difference between a dragon and a great dragon was not just a word. It was a difference of several levels of bloodline. But the Beast Castle was too powerful and had a close relationship with the war-ending empire. Many forces and families that were deceived could only grit their teeth and swallow their grievances. The Beast Castle would not take the initiative to deceive kingdoms. But the Grand Duchies, small duchies, and other neutral camps would not dare to cause trouble for them. But since William had the intention to overthrow him, he would not care about the relationship between the Beast Castle and the war-ending empire. Wasn't it just a ploy? If William could fool around with the Crown Prince and a group of nobles, William would fool around with the Second Prince and the war-ending emperor. Let's see who was the fiercest, who had the best buttocks, and who was the most handsome guy in the legendary continent. Once this plan was completed, there would be internal conflict in the Beast Castle. The City of Dawn could then use the excuse of saving the young dragons, doing it for justice, or you cheated me of my young dragon's money to take advantage of the situation. TSK. Perhaps they could form an alliance to overthrow the Beast Castle. If William could do this well, he might even reap great benefits in the version of the wrath of the giant dragons. Pa! William fiercely clapped his hands, and lightning flashed and thunder roared. Then it's decided. The City of Dawn will continue to develop step by step and participate in the war against the Orc Empire. In addition, we will explore some islands. If we can defeat the most important city, the Beast Citadel, the past 5 years will not be wasted. William took a deep breath. Ever since he became an epic professional, the Red Fire Kingdom, the Lion Kingdom, and some human grand duchies had increased their cooperation with the City of Dawn. This caused the monthly income of the City of Dawn to increase. But these business and employment transactions were limited. Only by conquering the Beast Castle, which had been in operation for thousands of years, could they make a huge profit. The only thing I'm worried about now is whether the old lord of the Beast Castle is dead or not. William did not know where the legendary expert had gone. He only knew that the legendary expert had gone missing, but it was not confirmed that he was dead. In particular, the 3 legendary dragons had not left the Beast Castle for hundreds of years. This indirectly proved that the old dragon was not dead, but no one knew where he had gone. Many people even thought that he was hiding in the dark and was only training in seclusion. If not for the fact that his backer was not up to expectations, the Beast Castle would have a boundless future as long as it developed step by step. But according to the development in my previous life, even if the old lord is not dead, he won't appear in a short period of time. This is because he did not appear when the three dragons were enraged. After all, even if he's a legendary expert, there is no need for him to give up on the two legendary dragons. William clenched his fists and immediately transmitted a message to his subordinates. He asked them to look for the contact person of the Beast Castle to do business. They would buy 300 warhorses and griffins every month. It was continuous. They gradually let down their guard. Then, they would bring up the news of buying dragons. What would they do later? Of course, they would retrieve their equipment and go to the Orc Empire to explore. They had no choice. Their hands were itching to scratch something. Chapter 421. North of the Great Ice Wall, the mountain ranges overlapped one another and stretched on endlessly. It was the same for the orc cities built on the mountains. These pitch-black cities were like huge stains that were stuck to the pure white icebergs. Looking from the sky, in the city closest to the Great Ice Wall, some buildings were emitting billowing black smoke. The orcs on the streets were heading to the factories in groups to work. Without a doubt, this orc city closest to the Great Ice Wall wasn't a normal residence for the orcs. It was a super military factory. There were 7 such cities in the Orc Empire. They provided sufficient weapons, armor, catapults, arrows, and various accessories for the orc soldiers in the 7 sections of the Great Ice Wall. As for the 7 super military factories, each city had an average of over 1 million orcs. The morning sun shone faintly. The hardworking orcs walked out of their houses that weren't too warm. They picked up their tools and went to work in the factories. They didn't rest in the afternoon. They worked from morning to night. During the war, they had been working for half a year. Every day, they worked 697 hours without rest. However, this kind of intense labor was already too much for many beastmen to bear. Many beastmen directly died of exhaustion at their posts. But escaping also meant death. Slacking also meant death. They were the most ordinary, simple, and kind-hearted orcs, and they had the least rights of orcs in the Orc Empire. In other words, they were the orcs who could not cultivate Do Chi and magic. The treatment of these orcs was even worse than the 70,000 orcs who mined for the City of Dawn. However, the orcs were good at reproducing and rearing. In this huge orc empire, if there was no birth control, the fish in the extreme north would not be enough for them to eat. But after the war started, Guerti once again opened up the policy of having more children. This led to more beastmen dying in the war than newborn beastman babies. Guerti wasn't sure how long the war would last. He didn't know if it would last until the orc children grew up and had enough power to pick up swords and die. In this war, Guerti knew that he would lose, because any saint from the elves or humans would be able to keep him busy. They had more legendary and epic warriors than the orcs. Guerti could only follow the rules of the elves. If the enemy sent intermediate soldiers, he would send intermediate soldiers. If the enemy sent out high-level and grandmasters, he would have to send out high-level grandmasters. The elves and humans were using him to train their troops. What could he do? Guerti was ambitious, but no matter how strong he was, he couldn't do it alone. He didn't dare to break the rules of the battlefield, because if he did, the elves and humans wouldn't need to follow the rules either. Therefore, it was uncertain how many people would be left in the Orc Empire from the Second Era. By abiding by the rules, they can at least die on the battlefield under the weapons of enemies of the same level. They can even kill a few people. This can also be considered a form of glory, isn't it? Gert laughed self-mockingly in the empty palace. The Dark World had promised to give him a lot of help in this war. There were tens of millions of dark creatures among them, but these guys were too weak and couldn't be controlled. Originally, the evil devil army was going to participate in the battle, but Silag, the son of Sidi, who was the leader of the evil devil army, had died at William's hands. Sidi, a legendary devil who had stepped into the sage level, had made a bet with the elves to take revenge on William. In the end, they had lost. The dark creatures were useless. They couldn't hold back the humans and elves. In the past 6 months, more than half of the dark creatures had died. Just the chosen ones alone had killed 1/3 of them. The evil devil army had just arrived and sent a wave of heads to the elven prince before leaving. Gert wanted to kill his way into the dark world and kill the idiotic evil devil lord, Sidi. But he didn't dare to, because in the 9 continents of the gods, he was one of the few sages of the orc race. He wouldn't die. The orc race would never disappear. He was a strong person, so strong that he stood at the peak of this world. He was weak, so weak that the humans and elves would destroy this empire. In the end, they could only let him and a portion of the orcs go. This war was telling him, the dark world is invading. You are a group of lackeys of the dark world. Your orc empire will be gone. Gert was angry, but he was helpless. His ancestors had made a wrong decision. Perhaps the orcs didn't have a good time in the gods' continent. That was why they surrendered to the dark world and became cannon fodder to conquer their own world. But no matter what, the orcs just wanted to become stronger and have a bigger territory. Was that wrong? For the development and strength of the race, that was definitely not wrong. Why could the elves and humans unify the continent? Did the orcs have to be like those little fish at the bottom of the gods' continent? It was a war between races. There was no justice. There was only the development and strength of the race. If the orc empire was strong enough, why would Gert let the orcs work so hard? Why couldn't they just capture some human slaves? 5 years. As long as we can hold on for another 5 years, when the next darkness invasion comes, even if my empire falls, I will make you pay an unimaginably heavy price. Gert narrowed his eyes and clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. This was the sorrow of being a sage of a race. Gert was powerful, but he had too many things on his back. It was too heavy. How could he not know the complaints of the low-level orcs? How could he not know that the low-level orcs scolded him for being a ruthless emperor? What did the low-level orcs say? They said that he was a traitor of the orcs, a lackey of the dark world, and that he was courting death. As a sage, he did not even have the guts to attack. Gert thought of these words and laughed. Indeed, I don't even have the guts to attack, but he was a sage. He was the god of the orcs. He wanted to protect the legacy of the orcs. As long as he wanted to, he could hear the voices and calls of the group of orcs. Every day and night, he could hear millions of orcs shouting cold, hungry, tired, weeping, wailing, and despairing voices echoing in his mind. During the war, countless orcs were screaming. Why did no one save them? Why did no experts appear? He heard it. He heard everything. He was tired of hearing it. In the beginning, he was distressed by it. Now, he was calm and did not want to listen to a single word, because he was the only orc sage in the entire legendary continent. Ever since he established the orc empire, he knew that he was wrong. This was not a strong fortress. It was a cage that he could never walk out of. Suddenly, there were footsteps in the palace. Gert looked at the newcomer with a blank expression. A legendary orc knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, we have chosen a total of 3 million talented orcs and sent them to the alternate dimension. Continue to choose. Let them give birth. Keep giving birth. You have to check every orc baby personally to see how talented they are." Gert's voice was very cold. "Yes, but they are so young. Let them leave their mothers." The legendary orc could not bear to do so. Gert did not speak. He just glanced at him indifferently. The latter did not dare to say anything more. He quickly got up and left. Did the legendary orc not know what Gert was thinking? He knew, but because he knew, he hated his powerlessness. He could only let this group of newborn children become orphans without even drinking their mother's milk. Gert slowly closed his eyes. No matter what, he was still the strongest person in this empire. He would continue to fight in the war. He had to prepare a way out. He only hoped. The promise of the dark world was real. If so, everything would be worth it. William did not understand the sorrow of the orcs. He did not need to understand. Everyone was selfish. Any intelligent creature could not avoid selfishness from the moment they were born. They all wanted to develop their own power. There was nothing much to say. In this magical fantasy world, being weak was a sin. Therefore, he was always working hard to become stronger. Because he knew he was weak. Even if he died, no one would care about him. In his previous life, when William was killed, his corpse was hung under the waterfall. In the later stages of the game, no one took it away. It was even used as a scenic spot. This was a sin. Meanwhile, William had dug a tunnel that was more than 40 kilometers long, to avoid any accidents. When he was 20 kilometers away from the Black Great Wall, he had already dug 50 meters underground. He had been digging to the north. He had been digging for a total of 3 hours. It had to be said, his hand speed increased. His digging speed was 3 times faster than before. After all, when 2 hands were added together, the speed of improvement was not 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. It could also be 3. Look at the map. The orc's super military factory should be nearby. William took out the crystal ball that Bernice had given him. He looked at the 3D magic map and muttered to himself, "But this is the internal territory of the Orc Empire. The defense is relatively lax. The strongest warriors are usually epic warriors. This gives me many opportunities. If I'm discovered, I can kill one of them and escape. Then, even if the legendary warrior chases me, he can only eat my fart." William stroked his chin and enlarged the map. "Yes." William inhaled a breath of cold air. "The Queen is awesome. She must have drawn this map above the Orc Empire. Even the location of the warehouse is marked clearly. Even Gert, that fool, did not dare to stop her. But why do I feel that Bernice gave me this map? It seems to be premeditated." He glanced at his hands and then at the crystal ball. William suddenly realized the purpose of Bernice giving him this super map. It seemed that she wanted him to cause trouble. "Then I don't care anymore. Since you've already hinted to me, I'm sure you'll protect my life when that Saint Gertai makes a move." The prince took a deep breath and began to dig upwards. After all, the orcs looked easy to bully. If he did not bully them, he would feel sorry for himself. Chapter 422. William had become an epic. He could be considered a powerful warrior in the legendary continent. He could not be too stingy. If he wanted to move things, he could not move a warehouse. It would be embarrassing if news of this spread. If he really wanted to move, he would have to move a city. This didn't seem to be a good thing to hear. However, emptying a city was definitely on a strategic level compared to emptying a warehouse. This was not called stealing. It was called strategy. He hid in a corner and used invisibility scrolls to hide his presence. He was confident that he had not been discovered. Indeed, no orc had discovered his actions. The most powerful warrior in the city was an epic warrior. Legendary warriors were not considered cabbages. Because his level was not high, he would try his best to avoid places where there were legendary warriors. At least the orcs did not believe that anyone would dare to move things in broad daylight. Even if the orc fortress had been stolen, the fortress was very different from the cities in the Orc Empire. So, even a true legendary warrior would not be able to discover William, who was covered in enchanter scrolls, if he did not deliberately look for him. He wandered around the huge city for a long time. He accurately determined the location of 8 huge warehouses. 4 of the warehouses were filled with various materials, while the other 4 were filled with countless finished products. Inside and outside each huge warehouse, there were 100 Grandmaster Orc guards guarding it. He understood that there were guards outside. There were guards inside as well. It seemed that they were guarding against him. But there was a problem. The Orc Empire did not know that he had become an epic professional. But it had to be mentioned that if the 7 cities of the Orc Empire had such a large amount of resources, the national treasury, and the precious treasures in the space ring, the Orc Empire, which was established at the end of the Second Era, had a large amount of resources. If the humans and elves wanted to fight a protracted war, the Orc Empire could hold on for at least a few decades. But the premise was that the Orc Empire could still have soldiers who could carry weapons before the resources ran out. After all, the average strength of the orcs was much lower than that of the elves and the humans. The number of casualties was a few times higher than that of the humans. It was tens of times higher than that of the elves. So according to the current situation, even if I move this city, it won't shake the foundation of the Orc Empire. Even if they knew that I was the one who took these things away, the saint wouldn't hold a grudge against me, right? The prince thought for a moment and decided to do it. It didn't make sense that he wouldn't even dare to enter the warehouse when he was already at the door. Instead, he felt a lingering fear. In particular, that old fellow seems to be ruthless, but in reality, he cares more about the development and strength of the tribe than I do. William decided to take a gamble. He hoped that the sage would not really bear a grudge against him. If he really wanted to kill him, it was impossible now. He had Bernice's protection. If Altair wanted to kill him in the future, it would depend on whether he had the chance to do so. In any case, he only wanted to kill him. Then his losses would be even greater. The Saint of the Elf clan would definitely not let this matter rest. William was far more ruthless than Altair. He was willing to bet everything in the City of Dawn to fight for his future. Even if the City of Dawn was destroyed, at most, he would be sad. He would bring along his trusted subordinates who were still alive and seek refuge with any faction. He could even be at ease as an elfin prince. But Altair sought refuge with the Dark World. He kept losing his soldiers in this war. It seemed like he was betting on his future. In actual fact, since the Devil Army was no longer participating in this war, the defensive power of the Orc Empire had been greatly reduced. Perhaps Altair didn't notice. But after the humans and elves easily conquered the remaining Orc fortress, the higher-ups of the two races held some meetings. They felt that Altair was too passive. This basically meant that Altair had admitted defeat 6 months after the start of the war. Perhaps he didn't deny it. Perhaps he was still stubborn in his heart. But the elves and humans didn't attack the Black Great Wall recently. But what was he doing? He sent out many legions to provoke the elven and human legions. Was this a provocation? Perhaps some orcs were boorish. But without military orders, could they walk out of the Black Great Wall? It was obvious that Altair was allowing his legions to walk out of the Black Great Wall. He was using the method that the orcs had used to walk out of the Black Great Wall to express their goodwill to the humans and elves. If he flattered the humans and elven sages, they would be spared. Altair did this because he hoped that the sages of the two races would allow him to preserve more of his tribesmen. In his previous life, after the Orc Empire was destroyed, not only did Altair retreat from the legendary continent, but he also brought along more than 5 million orcs with him. This meant that Altair was far more cautious than Altair. But the last time the Orc Empire faced the elves, they had fought for 10 years. Altair's attitude could be firmer. It was inevitable that they would fight to the death. But now, things were very different. The Frost Empire had also joined the war. Not only was the Orc Empire defeated quickly, but the Devils also did not participate in the war. Naturally, Altair did not want to resist fiercely. He only hoped that after he had killed enough orcs, he would quickly leave with his tribesmen. Perhaps he would also bring along more orcs and other strategic items. A large race with only one sage. It's so tiring to live. William sighed. He turned and entered the cave. He planned to stay here for a few days. At least he had to find out the pattern of changing guards here. Otherwise, if he was careless and was discovered, it would be dangerous. Even if there was no danger, he only had one chance to move things in the Orc Empire. He could only do this once against the Empire. Altair would not allow himself to be humiliated again. Therefore, he wanted to use this opportunity to move the most loot. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. More than 10 days had passed. William was 100 meters underground. He had opened up hundreds of underground tunnels, completely connecting 7 cities. He was trying to find the best target for himself. During this time, he also saw the news on the forum that Chu Yochio had once again led his team to win the World Championship. There was also the news of the version update just now. Tens of millions of chosen ones in the Gods continent had disappeared into thin air again. This had attracted the attention of countless forces. At the same time, those sages also looked at the chosen ones. They seemed to want to deduce where the chosen ones were hiding. It was a pity that this group of sages had wasted their efforts again. If there were no accidents, the experts of the legendary continent would think that William, who controlled a large number of chosen ones, should be busy with the missing chosen ones. But tonight, he wanted to take the opportunity to empty the 3rd city that he had discovered. There were obviously more resources here. The sky gradually darkened. William dug to the bottom of a warehouse, just as he was about to dig through it. However, he heard a surprising piece of news from the orcs. I heard that the resources are going to be transferred on a large scale. Only half of the resources are left in each city. Do you know why? I don't know, but I know that the 2 sacred veins of our empire are going to be moved away. The two sacred veins are going to be moved away? An orc could not help but exclaim when he heard this. Another orc immediately covered his mouth. Lower your voice. Don't spread this kind of news. But how is that possible? If the sacred veins are going to be moved away, won't our training speed be greatly reduced? So what if they're moved away? It's like we're living in the capital. The sacred veins have nothing to do with us. The asterisk MN, you're right. Later, I'll get an eyeless beast. We can roast it and eat it. That's a good idea. Remember to get some salt. All right. The two orcs chatted for a while. One of them seemed to have gone to get the eyeless beast. Logically speaking, now is the best time for William to take action. He could kill the two orcs without anyone knowing. Then he could kill the rest of the people in the warehouse. After all, with his epic skills, he would not be discovered if he killed the group of Grandmaster orcs. But William had forgotten about the sacred veins. What could be called the sacred veins by the Orc Empire? It was a mine made up of countless magical stones. William squatted in the hole and swallowed his saliva. There were more than 2 million magical stones in the City of Dawn. These stones were treasures that could help with training. They were also used by the kingdoms and empires for transactions. But the City of Dawn was poor. Those 2 million mana crystals weren't even enough for professionals to cultivate with. If they were distributed, they would be used up in less than a month. Only by piling them together could they form a magic formation that would be sufficient for the professionals to train for a long time. But 2 million, it was still too little. The effect of the magic formation was not enough. In fact, His Royal Highness really did know about some unknown magical gemstone veins. But now was not the time for the continent to move. Those mines were still on the small island, and William could not figure out their locations. As for the magical stone mines on the legendary continent, if they were discovered, they would be uprooted and taken away by the superpowers. For example, there were 6 magical stone mines under the Blackleaf Elf City. This was enough to prove that the Blackleaf Elves were more than 2 times stronger than the Orc Empire. William was suspicious. Altaic must have paid a high price to take away the 2 sacred veins. Why did the orcs walk out of the Black Great Wall to their deaths? Will they be taken away in 2 days? William muttered to himself, if I don't take action now, I can't take it anymore. There are 2 magical stone mines. Even if I don't steal one, just 1/10 of one will be enough for the development of the City of Dawn. William made up his mind. He muttered Bernice's name and kept expressing his wish. 10 minutes passed. William opened his eyes, which were flashing with a cold light. Logically speaking, the Queen should have heard his sincere request. Did she ignore him? She must have acquiesced to his request, no matter what. William immediately used his manual burrowing skill and quickly dug towards the Orc King city that was 100 kilometers away. He was as fast as lightning. As for the Queen, who was far away in the frost forest, she expressionlessly twitched her mouth. She had never seen such a shameless fellow. So what if he stole? If he stole resources from the warehouse, no one would care about him. But if he stole from the orcs, the Queen might have to fight for him, because Altaic had paid a high price to take away the 2 mineral veins. But William kept repeating the same sentence. Queen, help me hold them back. Half of the items that I take away will be given to the 3 races. Forget it. Just move it. If we're discovered, as long as Altaic doesn't do anything, you'll be able to move as much as you can. Bernice squinted her eyes. Everyone wanted magic crystals. Chapter 423. He could endure what ordinary people could not and do what ordinary people could not. Whether it was William's digging technique or speed, or his handsome appearance when he slept in the hole, ordinary people could not do it. Because the epic warriors were powerless. The sages were afraid of embarrassing themselves. But William, who had the hand of God, was able to use this skill to its fullest. He quickly arrived at the capital of the Orc Empire. He was now 100 meters underground. He did not know the location of his sacred veins. But if he thought with his toes, he would know that the sacred veins were either under the palace or in the center of the city. After all, the sacred veins were for the professionals in the city to train. William's only worry was that there would be a magical barrier or something guarding the sacred veins. But no matter what, since he was already here, he had to take a look. He could not be like Sun Wukong, who had immobilized the 7 fairies and left. Even if I don't touch them, I should at least touch the sacred veins. William extended his soul perception. He had 2 occupations, and his Saint Soul magic had reached the level of an enchanter. His soul perception could extend to a radius of 1,000 meters on the surface and 500 meters underground. Saint Soul magic was a support occupation. Without forbidden spells, it had such a strong effect. Normal soul magic could not extend that far. But even so, I still have to use the invisibility and aura concealment scrolls. I have to be careful when digging. William did not dare to be too arrogant in the underground of the capital. There were sages above him. There were also many legendary and epic warriors. They had all kinds of sensing abilities. Even if he was discovered, this group of people might not be able to catch up with him. But there was no need to provoke them. Time passed. William gradually dug from the edge of the capital to the inside. Even though he deliberately slowed down his speed, he was very familiar with it. He would not slow down if he was familiar with it. As he entered the underground of the capital, the world in his eyes gradually changed. Various kinds of magical elements were rapidly increasing. It was as if he was suddenly immersed in a magic ocean. TSK. The magic underground is 100 times stronger than on the surface. There must be a lot of magical stones in these 2 sacred veins. William did not dare to be careless. He did not dare to extend his soul perception outwards. So he continued to dig for a while. Suddenly, his soul perception was blocked, and he could not continue to extend outwards. Damn, it's a magic barrier. The prince raised his eyebrows, but he did not stop digging until he reached the location of the magic barrier. Only then did he stop. The earth element legendary enchanter's barrier seems a little troublesome. William clenched his fist. The situation was very complicated. It wasn't a problem with the magic barrier. William had the hand of God. Even if the barrier was very hard, he could easily penetrate it. However, this was an earth element legendary Grand Magus. If he discovered it, he would be able to uproot this piece of land with a single earth-shattering spell. At that time, he would be caught like an earthworm. Even if Bernice could save him, she would lose face. Even if the legendary big shot wasn't around, he would still attract attention if he were to make a move. What do we do now? William pondered for a while. Suddenly, he took the risk and dug upwards. He found a corner where no one was around and poked his head out to take a look. There were huge palace walls and some very luxuriant and tall buildings. The next second, William quickly burrowed underground. His lips curled into a smile. I knew it. Since the holy vein is used for cultivation, the palace and the powerhouse's buildings must be right above the holy vein. In that case, I don't believe that the earth element legendary big shot would dare to overturn this place. He can only play hide and seek with me using the earth evasion skill. As long as I sense fatal danger, I can escape. The prince narrowed his eyes and walked a few rounds around the magic barrier. After confirming the size of the magic barrier, he discovered that the sacred vein was just below the palace and the experts' residences. He came to the edge of the palace and took a deep breath. His 2 hands suddenly tore at the magic barrier. Crack! A hole was torn in the magic barrier, and William hurriedly dashed in. Time was tight. Before he sensed danger, he had to move as much as he could. Meanwhile, the fluctuations of the magic barrier were instantly detected by an earth element enchanter. At this moment, he was meditating right above the Saint Vein. He was the enchanter in charge of guarding the sacred vein. When he felt the fluctuations of the barrier being destroyed, he immediately opened his eyes and quickly burrowed into the sacred vein through the tunnel in the house. Why did the magical fluctuations not awaken the earth element legendary big shot? Of course, it was because the legendary big shot was building the alternate dimension of the Orc Empire. Altaic wanted to build a super alternate dimension that could accommodate 8 million or even 10 million orcs. It was not enough to just tear open the dimension. The land, buildings, and even the city had to be built step by step. Legendary and sages did not have the ability to create things out of thin air. Where did those things come from? They had to be moved from the gods' world. It could be said that the construction of a super alternate dimension No matter what element the legendary great enchanters were, they were all useful. It was just a matter of how useful they were. Among them, the space element, earth element, and water element were the most important. Of course, it was not a problem even if there were not so many legendary great enchanters. But it was necessary to have a sage, space, and earth element legendary great enchanters. There were many legendary experts in the Orc Empire, but the number of great enchanters could be counted on one hand. After all, among a group of boorish men, it would be a waste to find a few who were good at researching magic. From a second era until now, the Orc Empire had only had 5 legendary great enchanters, and this was under the condition that the Orc Empire's legendary great enchanters had not died. After thousands and tens of thousands of years, only 5 legendary grand mages were produced. How difficult was that? William's current situation was very obvious. There were many legendary professionals above him, but there was not a single enchanter. Altaic, the sage, was not in the palace. He was also in the alternate dimension, helping to stabilize the origin of the dimension to prevent it from collapsing or shrinking. Actually, he had no choice but to help. The Orc Empire only had one space enchanter. It was extremely difficult to support a super alternate dimension. Altaic could only help. So, when William was excavating the magical stones rapidly, he did not notice an earth element enchanter entering the ground. Because the earth element enchanter did not give him a sense of danger, this enchanter did not need to excavate. Every time he took a step forward, the soil would automatically open up a path for him. After all, in this world where soil was everywhere, the earth element enchanter was the real boss. But what was interesting was that William did not notice him. Similarly, the enchanter did not notice William. After all, Moses' invisibility scroll and Aura shielding scroll were very powerful. However, the earth element enchanter quickly realized that something was wrong. Not only had a hole been torn in the barrier, but there were also holes outside the barrier. It was as if a monster had circled the barrier a few times and then forcefully rushed in. The asterisk MN, what monster dug this hole? Could it be a mutated earthworm? The orc earth element enchanter raised his eyebrows. He was an earth element enchanter. Based on the formation of the holes, he could tell that the monster had dug the hole very quickly. He was almost certain that this hole could not have been dug by a humanoid intelligent creature. After all, he had never seen a humanoid creature dig so quickly. It was simply unbelievable. As for the warehouse of the orc fortress being stolen and the tunnel being dug, he knew a little about it. But when the people of the Orc King City heard that the tunnel had been dug by a Grandmaster half-elf, they almost died of laughter. Hamel, who had Altaic's super-grandson, did not need to participate in the war. Moreover, he was an enchanter, a treasure of the Orc Empire. There was no need for him to pay attention to a losing war, especially since this monster could tear the barrier of a great enchanter. You're telling me this is something a Grandmaster professional can do? Was it possible? It had to be an earthworm or some earth element magical beast. Why was there a barrier around the sacred vein to guard against? First, it was to prevent some orc professionals from stealing the magical stones. Second, it was to prevent some underground magical beasts from devouring the magical stones. But even if he was an enchanter, he was just an orc. Hamel was not angry. Instead, he was secretly delighted. If it's really a mutated earthworm, then I don't need to ask for help. It's hard to encounter such a creature. If I'm not mistaken, this mutated earthworm is at least an epic magical beast. As long as I can capture it and eat its magical crystal, my strength will increase by a large margin. William did not know that he had been treated as an earthworm. He was frantically stuffing everything he could see into his space ring. The sacred vein was huge. It was so huge that William found it hard to believe. Even if he filled all 6 of his space rings, he would not be able to store a sacred vein. But then again, there should be at least half a sacred vein. Hamel did not dare to waste any more time. He quickly found traces of the earthworms digging holes. But he was dumbfounded when he saw that the earthworms did not even leave a single strand of hair behind. Gosh, what kind of monster is this? It can eat so much. The earthworms can't be so powerful. Hamel carefully took out his magic staff and pressed his left hand on the soil, emitting magical ripples. Very soon, he discovered a creature that was devouring the sacred vein crazily. TSK, what kind of monster is this? It's formless and has no aura? Hamel was a little afraid. When he used his magic to investigate, he could only sense the traces left behind by the monster. But the creature had no shape, aura, and was invisible. D*MN, D*MN, don't F*King eat it, you damned monster. Although Hamel was afraid, he still had to take action. He dashed towards the spot that William had dug and soon saw a formless creature. He did not know if the creature was eating the magical stones or moving them away. Anyway, the magical stones in front of him were disappearing rapidly. But at this moment, William suddenly turned his head and stopped digging. Hamel felt that the invisible creature was going to attack him. But William suddenly dug towards the center of the sacred vein at an even faster speed. Hamel was even more astonished. What was this creature? How could it dig through the magic earthen walls that he had created? Therefore, one of them wanted to block Hamel, while the other could easily dig through the earthen walls that he had created. Hamel realized that the creature only knew how to escape and did not dare to attack him. He did not realize that he was becoming less and less cautious. Therefore, he finally saw William's real body. But in the next second, lightning flashed in the underground cave. Hamel's eyes widened as he watched the earthen walls that he had created being hammered. Finally, his chest was hammered. Another punch landed. Boom! Meanwhile, all the experts in the city sensed the battle in the sacred vein and rushed over. Chapter 424. It was wishful thinking to kill an earth element enchanter with 2 punches. It would take at least 3 punches. In particular, the soil was Hamel's home ground. Even though he had been punched twice, his ribs had been shattered, and his heart had nearly stopped beating, he had not died from the beating. Hamel hid in the soil ball that was as sturdy as an enchanted metal. He furiously used his earth element magic to trap William. According to logic, in the tens of meters underground, any professional of the same level would not stand a chance against an earth element enchanter. But Hamel could not stop William's unstoppable fists. Even though he could not unleash the full power of the Thunder God's body, each of his punches was filled with overwhelming power. No matter what kind of magic was used to block his punches, they were all destroyed in an instant. In a short span of 3 seconds, Hamel, who was in the soil ball, was beaten until he was dizzy. His beginner-level elemental body was reduced to a pile of mud. Every inch of his bones and flesh had been shattered. If he had not condensed a beginner-level elemental body, he would have been dead. However, he didn't suffer any more attacks. 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 13 seconds. Only then did Hamel react. The continuous attacks had stopped. Reinforcements had most likely arrived, allowing that damned gnome to escape. However, the moment he relaxed, Hamel's eyes widened in shock. Bang! A punch. The glowing electric fist pierced through the sturdy soil ball. 5 sword-like fingers easily pierced through Hamel's chest. Then, William pinched Hamel's heart. William caressed the elastic heart and squeezed it lightly. Puffed. Hamel's eyes widened as he vomited blood. The surrounding magic walls crumbled like soft soil. He did not die, but he could not maintain such a strong defensive shield. Gulp, gulp. Hamel kept swallowing the blood in his throat. He could not imagine how William could be so perversely strong. William could not be bothered to respond to the difference in strength between the two of them. He killed Hamel again and used soul resuscitation on his corpse. In the next second, William turned his head and dug in another direction. Hamel, who had died with grievances, blinked in confusion. He took out a magical robe and draped it over his body. Then he used earth element magic in another direction to create a whole bang, 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 bang. A series of explosions sounded, and a legendary fire elemental boss led several epic professionals to dig a hole in the ground with his battle energy and charged over. The leader of the group was a fire elemental legend with a bad temper. He glanced at Hamel, who was sitting on the ground, not dead yet, and grabbed him by the collar. He said viciously, "The sacred vein is such an important place. Why didn't you send a message immediately when someone barged in? Where did that fellow run off to?" Hamill pointed at one of the directions blankly. Taylor raised his eyebrows cautiously. There were a total of 3 tunnels here, so he definitely couldn't just go to one. In particular, Hamill's entire body was about to be smashed to pieces. His life aura was even lower than that of the undead. God knew if he had been beaten silly or if he had pointed the wrong way. Just as the others were asking him which direction he was going to pursue, a voice suddenly rang out. A strange aura suddenly appeared. "Be careful." The legendary big shot Taylor immediately grabbed Hamill. He remembered that he should have realized that the unimaginable aura of life couldn't be that of a living person when he picked Hamill up. In the end, the moment Taylor grabbed Hamill's head, he could only watch helplessly as Hamill's body rapidly expanded, boom, accompanied by an indescribable energy that spread in all directions. Lin Fan's body trembled. In the blink of an eye, the heavens and earth were turned upside down. Soil, rocks, and even buildings that were hundreds of meters high were sent flying into the sky from the explosion. The tremors reverberated throughout the entire city. The walls of the palace and the living quarters of the big shots seemed to have been bombarded by magic cannons. 7 to 8 seconds later, a crater was formed, and everything within a radius of a few hundred meters had been reduced to ruins. It was a tragic sight. When a group of professionals appeared in the sky, they gasped in shock. What was going on? Was Taylor going to force Hamill to lock him up? Hamill would rather die than submit. Was he going to use self-destruction to resist his authority? Taylor was holding Hamill's remaining head in his hand. The other epic professionals were all severely injured, and they lay on the ground and wailed in pain. Crack! The head in Taylor's hand exploded. The self-destruction of an epic professional did not cause any damage to Taylor, but the feeling of being tricked made him unable to control the battle energy in his body. He turned his head and burrowed into the ground, chasing after William. Meanwhile, more legendary professionals arrived and shouted angrily, "What are you looking at? Someone is invading the sacred pulse. Chase after him." Yes, the other orcs and devils finally reacted. It was different from what they had imagined, but the scene just now was too similar. They could not help but fantasize for a long time. The tall Taylor grabbed Hamill, who was sitting on the ground and retreating. He ignored Hamill's wails and grabbed his head. The position of Taylor's head was between Taylor's legs. In particular, Taylor had a group of epic subordinates behind him. TSK, TSK. Not only was Taylor forcing Hamill to lock him up, but he was also encircling him on both sides. There were even many conspiracy theorists who believed that there was no such thing as an invasion. It was just that the legendary big shot Taylor was too perverted and forced to self-destruct. After all, Taylor had done this before. His epic rank subordinates had either been forced by Taylor or had voluntarily given their bodies to him. Taylor's social circle was very chaotic. It was normal for others to have such thoughts. William was like a hard-working shepherd. He furiously plucked the wool in his hands at a very fast speed. Ever since he broke through the barrier and entered, he had filled up 3 space rings. Even though he had brought along a lot of soil, he had more than 30 million magical stones. When he used soul resuscitation, he did not intend to use it to delay for too long. He did not intend to use it to fight for him. It was enough to self-destruct and die. If he could delay for 30 seconds, he would do so. Swish, 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 swish. William's hand grasped a certain spot, and the power of thunder was responsible for cutting out a large crystal vein and storing it in the space ring. William was storing more and more crystals. In another 3 minutes, he would be able to fill up the remaining 3 space rings. But the danger was getting closer and closer to him. It gave him a feeling that if he did not run, he would never be able to leave. In the face of such a fatal danger, William did not have to force himself. A real man would always run away, and he would be very handsome when he ran. But a figure flashing with golden lightning appeared from within William's body and stayed in his previous position. He held the 3 space rings in his hand and continued with his previous task. His movements were even more skillful and agile. He even seemed to have no qualms about it. In less than 2 seconds, Taylor appeared in front of the Sacred Thunder Incarnation. He punched the Sacred Thunder Incarnation's head with boundless flames. Bang! A deafening explosion reverberated in all directions. Countless blazing flames seemed to be melting the Sacred Thunder Incarnation. Even the ground within a radius of a few thousand meters started to crack, and lava-like flames rose continuously. This exaggerated scene made it hard to imagine what kind of intense battle was taking place underground. But Taylor could not help but widen his eyes, because the person in front of him was not injured at all. He was still moving the other magical stones in an orderly manner. He even had the time to glance back at Taylor. It was as if he wanted to memorize Taylor's appearance and record it in his little notebook. How is that possible? Aren't you King and Epic? Taylor was not afraid. He was a legendary. If the sages did not come, he would not die. Another punch whizzed through the air. The Sacred Thunder Incarnation merely raised his left hand and casually blocked the punch with a finger. His right hand continued to collect large amounts of mana crystals. He moved quickly with small steps, completely ignoring Taylor's attack. CK. Taylor's cursing tone had changed. He could not help but ask, "What kind of monster are you? If you have such strength, why don't you join the Orc Empire? You just want magical stones, right? In the future, you can live in the holy bloodline and train." The Sacred Thunder Incarnation's entire body was flashing with yellow light and lightning. It was impossible to see his appearance clearly, but the Epic Rank's unique aura was undeniable. Moreover, apart from the first punch, Taylor threw out hundreds of punches. Not only did they not cause any damage, but because he used too much force, the bones in his hand were fractured. It had to be known. The guy in front of him was only using his left hand to block his attacks. What a powerful physical body. It was simply enviable and enviable. Moreover, the Sacred Spear Incarnation could replicate some of the characteristics of the Thunder God's left hand. This caused him to have the aura of a deity. As a legendary professional who had lived for more than 1,000 years, Taylor had more or less understood some things about the deities. He now believed that the Sacred Thunder Incarnation in front of him was very likely a deity, an unfamiliar deity. A newborn deity born from the heavens and the earth. Taylor inhaled a cold breath. The possibility was very high. After all, the Fourth Era had begun. A deity had reincarnated, and a deity was about to descend to the mortal world. It was not impossible for a newborn deity to appear. Putting aside the true strength of this newborn deity, if the Orc Empire could use him or even control him, it would be a great help to the Orc Empire. He did not think of William through the Sacred Thunder Incarnation, because the difference between the two was too great. Taylor realized that he could not stop the Sacred Thunder Incarnation from moving the magical stones. He said like a gossipy woman, "I know that you new gods all have extraordinary pride, but we, the Orc Empire, also have a saint. He is stronger than you, and he can guide you to become a real god, or even a main god." Uffed. Hearing this, William could not help but spit. Taylor was not angry. Instead, he laughed like an idiot. He said bluntly, "Let's not talk about being a main god, but I can guide you to become a true deity. You should also know that the elves, humans, and Seraphin do not have a good impression of natural deities like you. Also, the assassins from the Godly Slaying Temple will not let you off. Let me think about it." The Sacred Thunder Incarnation's voice was electronic, and it sounded cold and heartless. He wanted to leave. Taylor did not want him to leave. But the Sacred Thunder Incarnation turned around and stared at him, as if saying that there was no trust between humans. Taylor was a little hesitant, but the Sacred Thunder Incarnation's eyes seemed to reveal a trace of doubt and sincerity. He was like a newborn baby. "If you don't trust me, why should I trust you?" In the end, the Sacred Thunder Incarnation looked at Taylor for a full 5 seconds. Taylor took a deep breath and extended his hand, indicating that the Sacred Thunder Incarnation could leave. The Sacred Thunder Incarnation revealed a sincere and kind smile. He made an okay gesture and turned to leave. Taylor was a little confused, but he made the same gesture. This gesture should mean that the natural deity was bowing, right? But no matter what, he did this for the Empire, for the benefit of the orcs. If he could build a good relationship with a natural deity, it was equivalent to the Orc Empire having an extra saint. If this natural deity planned to live in the Orc Empire, it would be even more profitable. Lord Altaic would not be alone. The orcs would also be able to talk to other races on equal terms. They would not have to do what others told them to do. They would even have to send their tribesmen to their deaths. In fact, the most important thing was, after Taylor heard the poo, he was even more certain that this guy was a natural deity. He had heard from Lord Altaic that the deities born in the mythological era basically only needed to swallow enough magic and magic crystals to become stronger step by step. They could even easily become deities. The so-called bloodline and talent did not exist for them at all. Only the main god level was considered more difficult for them. This was also the key reason why other races had to submit to the deities in the mythological era. Taylor had just said that he would let the saint teach him to become a deity, but that was just nonsense. But this natural deity was so contemptuous of the saint's teachings, which happened to confirm his thoughts. In particular, this guy dared to take risks in the capital of the Orc Empire for magic crystals. Maybe he could become stronger by swallowing magic crystals. Taylor thought about a lot of things for a moment. He watched as the holy lightning incarnation dug a hole and left with a smile on his face. He even started to imagine how the great saint would praise him. 10 seconds later, when the figures came to Taylor's side, they realized that he was smiling foolishly. A wind legendary big shot couldn't help but ask. One of the holy bloodlines was half stolen. Why are you laughing? Where's the enemy? What enemy? He's a future member of the Orc Empire. What do you mean? Someone asked. Taylor chuckled. Guess what I ran into? A natural deity. I saw a natural deity. The other legendary big shots were dumbfounded. You've been forcing men too many times recently. Have you become stupid? But the orcs were all simple-minded. Taylor believed in himself. Was Taylor stupid? How should he put it? The more powerful a world was, the less they liked to use their brains. In many cases, there was no need to use their brains when things could be settled with their fists. Crafty plots and conspiracies were often used by those with mortal bodies. After all, their fists were strong enough. Chapter 425. William's crime had not been discovered. The Earth Enchanter, who had seen him, had self-destructed and died. After his clone was discovered, William had used his invincible body to mislead William into thinking that he was a natural god. William had not expected this. William had intended to let the Holy Thunder Incarnation hold onto the 3 space rings and take as many magical stones as he could. Then, he could throw the rings to William. Even if the Holy Spirit Incarnation was stalled, it would only disappear after 10 minutes, and William would lose 3 space rings. But the most unexpected thing was that Taylor was actually Tyson's younger brother, Tyder. In order to befriend a natural god, Taylor had allowed the Holy Thunder Incarnation to escape. After William recalled the Holy Thunder Incarnation into his body, he did not dare to stay here any longer. He immediately dug 300 meters underground, as he was afraid that someone was secretly tracking him. But then again, ever since I reached the epic level, I've spent all my experience points on the Holy Thunder Incarnation, allowing it to last for 10 minutes. It seems to be a very profitable decision. William muttered to himself as he dug. In addition, Taylor has confirmed that the Holy Thunder Incarnation is a natural god. Does that mean that I can impersonate it? In the future, can I let the Holy Thunder Incarnation interact more with the Orc Empire and give them the impression that I'm relying on them? William did not have enough experience points to upgrade the Holy Thunder Incarnation to the maximum level of the epic level. He was looking forward to the special effects of the clone skill when it reached the maximum level. This clone was not very strong in terms of attack, unless he was equipped with an epic legendary equipment set. Otherwise, he would be invincible. He could ignore the attacks of the sages. But now he also discovered that after replicating his hand of the Thunder God, it could actually emit a unique aura, as if it was a natural god. William could not help but laugh. If the Holy Thunder incarnation can last longer, will I be able to disguise it as a natural god? If he could really do that, then there would be too many benefits for him to obtain. Actually, that legendary fire element big shot, Taylor's thoughts weren't entirely wrong. After the start of the Fourth Era, the world of gods had given birth to some wild gods. These fellows were born with epic and legendary strength. They didn't need any cultivation. As long as they devoured enough magical crystals, they could become gods or saints. In particular, these natural deities had all kinds of god-level talents and were far stronger than ordinary professions of the same level. Although the invincibility of the Holy Lightning incarnation was overpowered, it would not reveal its true strength if it did not attack. It was understandable that people would mistake it as a wild god. As William pondered, he threw the soil out of the space ring. He threw them all the way to the underground tunnel behind him. When he finally left the Black Great Wall, he finally realized how many magical crystals he had obtained. A total of 58 million mana crystals were equivalent to 50% of a medium mana crystal or vein. It was 3 to 4 times more expensive than the resources of a city. Well, if these mana crystal or veins were placed under the City of Dawn, the magic in the City of Dawn would increase by at least 20 times. It would be enough for millions of people to train for 7 to 8 years. It would also greatly increase the training speed of professionals. Within 5 years, there would be a large number of advanced and grandmaster professionals. In other words, they would train as hard as they could. If they ran out of magical crystals, he would find more. Therefore, after William arrived at the Dawn Fortress, he rushed to the Snow Elves' capital city. He planned to return to the City of Dawn. As for his original wish and request, he had long forgotten about it. After all, Queen Bernice did not respond to him. It was obvious that she did not agree to his request. She probably did not know what he had done. Since she did not care about him, he would definitely take all the items with him. But just as he was about to step into the teleportation portal, a voice rang in his mind. "Where are you going? Didn't we agree to split the items in half?" William's left leg floated in midair. He expressionlessly frowned and handed 3 of the rings to a guard. But when he was about to step into the teleportation portal, he suddenly turned his head and said, "Return the space rings to me later." The scene returned to the Orc Empire. The sacred bloodline had been stolen. It was definitely not a trivial matter. Sage Altaic had also rushed back from the alternate dimension. In the palace hall, Altaic sat high up on the throne. He looked at Taylor with a complicated gaze, but he still asked in a deep voice, "Are you serious?" "Your Majesty, I used all my strength to attack him, but not only was that guy unscathed, he even broke my arm. If he's not an innate god, what else could he be? I'm a whole level stronger than him," Taylor said in a muffled voice and waved his hand. The water mirror magic appeared. To prove that he was not lying, Taylor used magic to replicate the scene of him interacting with the embodiment of Holy Thunder. Altaic and the other legendary professionals witnessed this scene. They could not help but be amazed. Taylor's character and liking for men were terrible, but his strength was undeniable. Even other legendary professionals could not resist his brute fists. But the god merely lifted his palm and blocked all of Taylor's attacks. This was naturally shocking. The embodiment of Holy Thunder could not only block all attacks, but even Taylor's strength could not push it. This was simply unimaginable. After all, even if a professional of the same level was punched by Taylor, he would not be able to stand still, right? After this water mirror magic was played a dozen times, Altaic fell into deep thought. Altair was lost in thought. He wanted to deduce the information about this god, but he was powerless. There was not a single fortune teller in the entire Orc Empire who could reach the level of a magister. He was a saint, a physical and melee saint. He was certainly not good at magic. In the end, Altaic could only say in a deep voice, "Let's see if we can contact this guy again in the future, but we can't use the holy bloodline to seduce him. Because the vast majority of natural gods will not trust any forces. Even if we give him 2 holy bloodlines, he will still be wary of us. He will only grow slowly in the dark until he becomes a real god. Only then will he face us head on." Taylor's eyes widened. He could not help but ask, "Then what should we do, Your Majesty? Are you not going to contact this guy in person?" "There is no need. He will not meet me. If there is a chance, try to be on good terms with him. If he is always trying to cheat you, tell me. Let's see if I can kill him personally." After saying this, Altaic waved his hand, dismissing the crowd. Ever since Altaic had seen the water mirror magic, his doubts about the natural gods had lessened. But he still felt that there was something wrong with this guy. However, the holy bloodline was going to be dug out tomorrow. If the natural god dared to come and ask for magical stones, it meant that he really needed to devour these things to break through. D****. If I had a soul grand enchanter under me, I guarantee that the natural god would not be able to return. Altaic was very unhappy. He even understood why that guy came to the Orc Empire to steal the holy bloodline instead of going to other places. Perhaps this natural god had an extremely high physical defense. He was not afraid of being hit or beaten up. He was not even afraid of Altaic's presence. The only thing he was afraid of was soul control. If the City of Dawn wanted to develop for 5 years, it could not do without the support of resources and money. The 28 million magical stones that William left behind were placed under the City of Dawn by the Blood Moon Witches. He also used a magical barrier to envelop them. As for whether the stones would be stolen, the prince could not be sure. He could only hope that some experts were not as shameless as him. But then again, the underground system of the City of Dawn was very complicated. If someone really came to steal the magical stones, it was very likely that they would encounter a group of dwarves who were playing with iron. He originally wanted to go back, but Douglet walked over leisurely. He looked as if he wanted to end his life, because William realized that this guy was a real NPC. His favorite thing to do was to give out missions and rewards to the players. He pretended to be an NPC in front of the players all day. His hobby was so strange that it was unimaginable. So before Douglet walked close to him, William hurriedly said, "If you have something to say, just say it. What do you want?" "Your Highness, do you know when the Chosen Ones will return?" "I don't know." The prince decisively shook his head. Even if he knew, he could not say it directly. Douglet sighed. "Sigh, my goal in life has disappeared. The cute Chosen Ones are no longer around me. I don't know when the princess will return. Since you're so carefree, why don't you go and train? Or you can become a teacher in the Dawn College." William gave a suggestion. Douglet was an epic veteran with a legendary bloodline. He could still improve. Why did he act as if he had no goal in life when the Chosen Ones were not around? Douglet shook his head. Those guys are not as interesting as the Chosen Ones. They don't know how to bootlick. William pondered for 2 seconds. Douglet was right. Normal people were definitely not as ferocious as the players. "I want to take a risk now. Are you interested, Your Highness?" Douglet said again. William raised his eyebrows. "Where?" "I want to find the ruins of the sea god. You know that I'm a water warrior and mage. I'm a dual professional. But ever since I obtained the epic title, my strength has stagnated for decades. Now I want to improve. I know that I have the potential to do so." Douglet clenched his fists and said confidently, "I'm not going," William said decisively. "Huh?" Douglet could not believe it. How could a grave robber who specialized in digging the ruins of the gods not be excited and happy when he heard this news? "Ahem. I don't have the time to travel on the sea with you. You can look for Captain Jack and board the Dawn vessel. Let him bring you around and see if you can find the ruins of the sea god." William did not know where the ruins of the sea god were. However, since Douglet had said that, it meant that he more or less had some clues. But the prince did not intend to go, so he could only give him some support. If Douglet could advance to the legendary level, the City of Dawn would have another trump card. William watched as Douglet left. He received a surprising piece of news. The second prince of the war-ending empire, Caesar, was getting married in 7 days. He had invited William to attend the wedding. William scanned the wedding list and gradually fell into deep thought. Chapter 426. The second prince of the war-ending empire was getting married. The scale of the wedding was huge. It was also a message to the outside world. Caesar Giga would become one of the successors to the throne. His bride was called Orphira. Although she was not as noble as the princesses of the human empires, her bloodline was not inferior to theirs. She was the great-granddaughter of a sage. How many sages were there in the war-ending empire? According to the situation in William's previous life, there were 6 or 7 sages. As for how many were hidden, William did not know. But just by looking at the sages of the war-ending empire, he discovered a problem. The human empires were too powerful. They were so powerful that they were overconfident. This was why the professionals of the empires did not care about the darkness invasion. It was because any human empire was so powerful that the 3 elven tribes had to unite to resist it. In terms of sages, the 3 elven tribes did not have as many sages as a human empire. The father of this bride, or Fira, was a legendary general. Not only did he have real power, but he also had an army of 800,000 professionals. He was also a peak legendary expert. As for her great-grandfather, his name had long been forgotten. Or perhaps no one dared to say his name. Everyone called him the unparalleled battle sage. The title of saint conferred was extremely awesome, but the onlookers could not help but admire him. This old man was too powerful. He was not only the founding hero of the war-ending empire, but he was also one of the 12 living sages of the human race. It was because of this old man, the war-ending empire was able to successfully split from the Sunset Empire. When I think of him, I think of Old Hank. Why is there such a big difference between people? Why is it that even your ancestor is dead, but Old Hank is still alive? William sighed. He did not know when Old Hank would break through to the next realm. The 12 sages of the human race at the end of the Second Era were all powerful experts. Although they could not compare to the main gods, there were no such people participating in the war. The strongest experts in the Dark World were only sages. But after so many years, only 5 of the 12 sages of the human race were left. The unparalleled battle sage of the war-ending empire was one, and the Sunset Emperor of the Sunset Empire was another. The remaining 3 were in other continents. Some of them had died during the Darkness invasion, while others had suffered irreversible injuries and died during their long lifespans. As for whether or not someone had faked their death, no one could say for sure. After all, most of the saints died in battle, and there was not a single saint who died of old age. What gift should I give? If it's too good, my heart will ache. William felt a little uncomfortable. He hated attending other people's weddings the most, although this also gave him a chance to network. But he didn't know when he could take it back. According to his thinking, showing his face was the cheapest and most practical way. However, it was not a situation where he could not give a gift just because he was present. However, the invitation clearly states what identity I should use. It doesn't mention the words elf prince, which means that the Blackleaf, Moonlight, and Snow Elves all have their own invitations. I don't need to represent the Blackleaf Elves. I only need to represent the City of Dawn. There are pros and cons to this. Caesar did not label him as a Blackleaf Elf. This made it convenient for him to cooperate with a war-ending empire in military and business. The cons were that he did not have the label of an elf prince. If he were to fight with a certain power, they wouldn't care if he had the backing of the Blackleaf Elves. They might just kill him, because the power of the human empires was not afraid of the elves. As for why Caesar would hold a grand wedding, it meant that he would become one of the heirs. Princes who did not have the chance to inherit the throne did not have the right to speak, and the empires would not specially publicize their names. As long as they trained in the palace and did not embarrass themselves, it would be enough. The heirs of the human empires were very interesting. The human emperors would directly announce who had the chance to inherit the throne, and then let the princes fight for it. As long as the princes did not harm the interests of the empires and did not kill their brothers, they would not violate the rules. The emperors would also choose a prince who could inherit the throne based on the votes of the cabinet ministers and their own thoughts. The princes who were not chosen had to slowly train and become stronger. Only when they were chosen and recognized could they fight for the right to inherit the throne. However, the later the princes were chosen, the less likely they were to fight for the right to inherit the throne. The way they fought was to see who had the most power and the strongest backing. Let's put it this way. Every fight for the throne represented a reshuffling of the power of the empires. What the princes had to do now was to take away the authority of the emperor step by step. How could they take it away? How could they build new power bases? How could they control these power bases? These were the things that the princes who had the right to inherit the throne had to learn. It was Emperor Jige who was nurturing the princes' schemes. He wanted them to learn how to control and use power. Every time the human empires fought for the throne, after the new emperor ascended to the throne, there would be a great reshuffle of the powers of the empires. Although this would result in a loss of power, it would also maintain the vitality of the human empires. This was because new powers would definitely rise up and replace those that were lost. The human empires never lacked experts who could ascend to the throne. However, the empire was only so big. If the person above them didn't die, then they wouldn't have a chance to ascend. At this moment, the first prince was the strongest with the most supporters. Because of his status as a great archmage, the magic temple, the magic academy, and even some powerful mages within the empire's borders were his supporters. The people standing behind Caesar, Jige, were not weak either. Among them, there was the unparalleled battle saint, who could not possibly make a move. This was because saints wouldn't participate in the fight for the throne, nor did they have any interest in doing so. However, his father-in-law was a general with the title of Marquis. Moreover, Caesar came from the academy, so these two aspects were his supporters. Originally, the third prince also had a chance to compete for the throne. However, because of this ambitious bootlicker, the second prince suddenly gave out a fruit of life that not only healed most of Emperor Jiji's injuries, but it also extended his lifespan by many years. As a result, great Emperor Jige had arranged such a marriage for him, allowing him to participate in the battle for the throne. However, the first prince and the third prince were brothers of the same mother and father. Seeing this, the third prince didn't plan to compete for the throne. He gave all the forces behind him to his elder brother to increase his trump card. Thus, this seemed like a wedding. Or rather, it was the first time that the forces behind Caesar Jige showed their support. Fortunately, when William sold the fruit of life, he had the intention to invest in Caesar Jige. Although the eldest prince had inherited the throne in his previous life, he knew that even if Caesar Jige hadn't had the fruit of life in his previous life, he would still have participated in the battle for the throne a few years later and had almost become the new emperor. Especially since the first prince had too many forces behind him. Even if William supported him, he wouldn't get much in return. After all, no one would remember the icing on the cake. Only by providing timely help would people remember him for a lifetime. Both Kaiser and Grand Emperor Jige would never forget the fruits of life that he had sold. The great emperor even had a few dozen favorability points towards him, which meant that the human emperor still remembered him. More interestingly, the fruit of life that William sold had decreased the good impression of the first prince and the third prince. It could be said that, even if William didn't support Caesar Jige, he had no choice. That was because if the first prince were to inherit the throne and gain control of the empire's power, he might find a way to take revenge on him. Who the F***CK would be able to withstand that? It feels great to support a prince of a human empire. The investment is huge, but the returns are also huge. William thought for a while and knew what he should give. 10,000 magical energy crystals. This strategic resource should give Caesar a great advantage in certain areas. After all, I have mines at home. Even though I don't have many magical stones, I don't lack magical crystals. William thought for a while and asked his men to prepare the magical crystals. He didn't need to worry about the investment. If Caesar Jige couldn't inherit the throne, he would have nothing. Not only would he suffer a huge loss, but the city of Dawn would also be attacked by the Jige Empire. But if Caesar Jige became the emperor of Jige, he would receive 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times more benefits. The only thing he had to do now was to support the second prince like everyone else. The biggest change between this life and his previous life was that Caesar Jige had married the granddaughter of the peerless warrior sage. This increased William's determination to invest in Caesar. This also showed that the emperor of Jige thought highly of the filial Caesar Jige. He even got a strong supporter for William. Then, I'll go to the Jige Empire to attend the wedding 3 days later. William thought for a while and decided to make more preparations. This was because there might be a direct confrontation with the power behind the first prince. Of course, this situation was rare. After all, it was Caesar Gg's wedding. Even if there was a confrontation, it wouldn't be too obvious. Most of the fights would be between the powers behind the two parties. But as a lord of a neutral power, I still need to show some face. I can't go alone. William thought for a while and decided to bring the Blood Moon Witch along. If it was possible, it would be best to bring the legendary gold dragon, Go, to show others that the City of Dawn wasn't a pushover. As for Burn Cinder, Diablo, Violent Dragon, and the others, they didn't have the chance to go with him to the Xigu Empire. They were only grandmasters. Only when they became epic would they have the status and power to participate in the wedding. Actually, the most important thing is that if I support Caesar Xigu, I'll have another reason to go to war with the Beast Castle. I'll find a chance to scam the Beast Castle. They might be selling my magical beasts at a high price because they're supporting the first prince. Chapter 427. 3 days passed quickly. William had wanted to bring the legendary gold dragon, Gerald, along. But Gerald was nowhere to be found. He was not in the City of Dawn. He waited for Gerald for 3 days in the City of Dawn, but Gerald had not returned. William had no choice but to bring the Blood Moon Witch to the war-ending empire. The capital city of the human empires was also known as the Royal City. William had once passed by this place because he wanted to go to the extreme north, but he did not stop there. Grandmaster professionals were not worth mentioning here. He was afraid that if he was not careful, he would be killed by a shameless person. That would be a loss. This was the largest city in the war-ending empire. Even with his eye of thunder, he could not see the end. There were more than 10 million people in the royal city, and more than 80% of them were professionals. Legendary and epic experts were not common, but in some special streets, it was easy to encounter them. Both of them appeared from the teleportation portal. He saw many professionals going in and out of the 16 giant teleportation gates around him. Many of them were traveling merchants, freelancers, mercenaries, and even people who came to attend the wedding like William. William was considered famous among the elves, but his reputation in the human camp was average. Nobody knew him, or rather, they did not know what he looked like. He would not greet certain people based on his memories from his previous life. Did he have any reputation in the human camp? Of course, he did. This group of people only knew that he was the most handsome guy in the legendary continent. They also knew that he was the only victor of the Darkness invasion, and that he was a butcher who killed the Chosen Ones. These legend points were very useful. At least, it would not make people look down on him. "Follow me," William said to the Blood Moon Witch. The witch nodded obediently. She strode forward with her long and beautiful legs and followed closely behind William. She was as obedient as a young wife. In fact, the Blood Moon, which had memories, could think, and could act on her own. She even remembered how William had beaten her up until her entire body disappeared, leaving only a pair of eyeballs. Moses did not use soul control on her, but the Blood Moon, which had completely regarded him as her master. She did not dare to bear a grudge against William, which meant that Moses had extraordinary magical talents. He even indicated that he could help the Blood Moon Witch improve. This was the reason why the Blood Moon Witches had completely surrendered. Now that the Blood Moon, which was wearing a red magic robe, her exquisite face and alluring figure couldn't be concealed. Naturally, she attracted the attention of many people, but no one dared to tease her. It was because William and her aura were both at the epic level. They were both handsome and beautiful. They looked like a couple from a powerful family, especially since Caesar Xigu had recently gotten married. Many professionals from major forces had come to Xigu Imperial City, and the locals in the city were not sure whether or not they were guests of Prince Caesar. The buildings here are so tall that they block the sun. There are very few green plants, and the pedestrians on the street are in a hurry. It looks very uncomfortable, the Blood Moon, which suddenly said. William nodded. The pace of life in the City of Dawn is rather slow. Other than during times of war, the citizens are very carefree. However, the war-ending empire implemented a military system. You could see that no matter what these commoners did, they had a purpose and they moved very quickly. That was because when they turned 18, as long as they could cultivate chi or magic, they would join the army for at least 3 years. This is a personal habit cultivated by the army. The Blood Moon Witch pondered for a while and suddenly said, "This seems very good. Lord, don't you want to borrow it? I'm not interested. Moreover, the population of the city of Dawn isn't large enough. If the commoners joined the army at 18 years old, who would farm and mine for me? You?" William pouted. Among the 3 human empires, the war-ending empire had the strongest army. It was an empire with a population of more than 1 billion. During times of war, it could instantly mobilize an army of more than 100 million soldiers. Although the average quality of the soldiers was not good, the large number was very useful. But in a country governed by a military system, William felt that it was too tiring for the commoners. If it weren't for the many sages and legendary experts above them, the country would have been destroyed sooner or later. Moreover, William could make use of his reputation. There were many commoners in the city of Dawn. They did not join the army or the Dawn mercenary team, but if William wanted them to help, he could just say the word. There was no need to go through so much trouble. The 2 of them walked to the east side of the war-ending palace. Most of the adult princes and princesses lived here. As for the west side, many aristocrats of the war-ending empire lived here. The 2 of them walked for 3 hours, but they saw many things that were not available in the city of Dawn. William was not too curious. But the Blood Moon Witch, who had been sealed for hundreds of years and beaten up by the Grand Duchy, was in a daze. There were airships in the sky. There were various flying magical beasts in the sky. There were towers that were more than 10 meters tall, some even dozens of meters tall. When the 2 of them passed by the war-ending Magic Academy, they saw dozens of magic towers on the campus. There were 13 magic towers that were hundreds of meters tall. This meant that there were 13 legendary great enchanters, and they were experts with legendary titles. And this was the Magic Academy of the Empire. Not all of the great enchanters of the war-ending empire were here. When the Blood Moon Witch saw these magic towers, she stopped for 10 seconds. Then, she took a deep breath and continued walking with William. William glanced at her. When he saw that she was lowering her head and not saying a word, he suddenly laughed. "What's wrong? You can't walk when you see the magic towers? My lord, do you think Master can successfully become a great enchanter?" The Blood Moon, which was very worried. She was worried that her faith would be shattered, and she was even more worried that Moses would fail to break through. William chuckled. "Then you're worrying for nothing. In this world, anyone can stop moving forward, but Moses can't. It's too easy for her to become a great enchanter." The Blood Moon Witch's eyes lit up. Actually, she had the same idea, because Moses was an all-round enchanter. Ever since her master demonstrated his all-round magic, she had completely regarded Moses as her faith. "Oh, who's Moses? How dare he speak so arrogantly? Do you professionals from small places like this always speak without thinking?" William raised his head to look at the young man who spoke. He was an epic enchanter. He looked very young, but he had become an enchanter in his 30s. He could be considered a genius. Beside him were 2 other epic enchanters. They did not look old, but they had stayed in the enchanter realm for a long time. They wore the same white mage robes, and their sleeves were embroidered with exquisite golden patterns. They seemed to be either teachers or students of the Magic Academy. William raised his eyebrows and suddenly extended his hand to stop the Blood Moon Witch, who was about to attack. Swish! He slapped her with lightning speed. Bang! The enchanter who had spoken was sent flying hundreds of meters away like a cannonball. He crashed heavily at the entrance of the Magic Academy. He was sent home. At this moment, countless people on the streets looked in their direction. They were puzzled. Who dared to provoke the teachers of the Magic Academy? Could it be the teachers of the Battle Energy Academy? But it did not seem like it. If the 2 epic professionals were foreigners, even if they were nobles of the Empire, they would be finished. The 2 enchanters behind the Blood Moon, which were also dumbfounded. Gosh, did he really dare to attack? Didn't he just say Moses? Who was he to him? Was he crazy? But they could not see the speed of William's attack. If they really fought, they were obviously not qualified. William narrowed his eyes. I'll reply to you. Don't shoot your mouth off. As he spoke, no one noticed that he had already crushed the sound transmission scroll in his sleeve. D*MN, capture him. The enchanter who had been sent flying covered his red and swollen face. He led a group of people back. Not only were there students and teachers from the Magic Academy, but there were also patrolling guards. But this was only a small patrol team. The leader of the guards was a Grandmaster professional, not an epic professional. But this was the royal city of the war-ending empire. As a guard of the royal city, he had no fear. As long as he was not facing a legendary expert, he had the confidence to do what he had to do. The young Grandmaster professional extended his hand in front of William and said, "Please take out your identification and come with us." William glanced at the enchanter who had looked for the police after being beaten up. He took out his invitation card. When a young guard saw this scene, he could not help but frown. "Lord of the City of Dawn, are you a guest attending the wedding of the second Prince of Caesar?" "Yes." William narrowed his eyes. The question and the answer. Instantly, the people on the streets understood. No wonder he dared to attack. He was the Lord of the City of Dawn. He was the Lord of the neutral faction and the Blackleaf Elves Prince. Especially since that guy could send out 4 million people to capture 5 orc fortresses in a single day. He was a F***king, ruthless person. It was already good enough that he did not kill people, but he had only slapped them. The invitation card did not indicate that he was the Blackleaf Elven Prince. However, a lot of his reputation and fame were earned by himself, and they were aware of it as well. This situation made things difficult for the guard of the royal city. He was only a Grandmaster. If he was facing an ordinary epic professional, he would dare to capture him without any scruples. But William had too many labels. But the enchanter who had just been beaten up could not take it anymore. He shouted, "What are you looking at? Capture him. A prince is as guilty as a commoner if he breaks the law. Moreover, he is a Blackleaf Elven Prince." The royal city guard swallowed his saliva and was about to speak. A faint voice traveled to everyone's ears. "What do you think about a prince breaking the law?" Caesar wore a long black robe and slowly walked out with a group of subordinates. The enchanter's face darkened. He turned and wanted to leave. "Capture him. Let him understand the consequences of insulting the prince." After Caesar finished speaking, the other guards did not hesitate. They immediately wanted to capture the enchanter. But the situation was not that simple. Another young man wearing a black robe appeared. The first prince of the war-ending empire. Peter Giga glanced at William and then at Caesar. He sneered and said, "Since when did the enchanter of the war-ending empire have to be captured after being beaten up on the streets?" "My brother, tell me, does our empire have such a law?" Chapter 428. When William heard this, he ignored it. He just quietly looked at Caesar Giga. He wanted to see how the second prince would solve this problem. He had thought of many ways. For example, Caesar would ignore him, or he would use some kind of law to deal with it. Otherwise, Caesar would give in and ask him to apologize. After all, he was the one who had caused this trouble. But through this trouble, he could also see if William needed to continue investing in Caesar. Therefore, the second prince's next move was a little interesting. He walked straight towards the enchanter. He suddenly swung his hand. "Pa!" The slap resounded across the street. The young enchanter's left cheek was already swollen. Now, there was a red palm print on the right side of his face. The other party was stunned. But the enchanter did not dare to retaliate. He did not even dare to dodge. Even though Caesar was only a guru-level professional, the people standing behind him were all domain warriors, and there were many powerful legendary-level professionals behind him. And he was just a lackey of Crown Prince Peter. Then Caesar walked in front of him and pointed at his face. "Did I hit you?" Gulp. The young enchanter shook his head nervously. Caesar pointed at William. "Did he hit you?" The enchanter felt so wrong that he was about to cry, but he still shook his head. Peter could not take it anymore. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "Who gave you the right to beat up a mentor of the Magic Academy? My father has just appointed me as the commander of the Royal Guards. Someone lied and slandered my guest. That person deserves to be beaten. Are you not satisfied?" Caesar turned his head and said. He ignored the ashen-faced crown Prince Peter. Peter was not satisfied. He sneered. "While you're married, I'll give you some time to rest. Don't blame me for being rude." Caesar pretended not to hear him. He patted William's shoulder like a good brother and smiled. "I'm sorry that you encountered such trouble when you just came to the royal capital. Let me know the next time you come. I'll send someone to receive you." Peter is a mad dog that bites. Many of my supporters have been provoked by his subordinates. "Huh, did they beat anyone up?" William asked in a good manner. "There really isn't. Most people don't want to cause trouble for Jigu Imperial City." Caesar shook his head and said with a smile, "But isn't there a guy like you who isn't afraid of trouble?" William smiled and shrugged his shoulders. He had two goals in mind. One was to make them think that he was a pushover. The other was, of course, to warn these idiots that they could not be rude to everyone. How could they be magicians? The goddess of magic didn't even know how to respect her. Caesar's solution might leave some hidden dangers or loopholes, but his approach would definitely make his supporters very happy. It had to be said, this was a very good way to rope them in. But the prince was not his subordinate, but his ally. 10 minutes passed. William brought the Blood Moon witches to Caesar's palace. At this moment, there were already many people here, and a banquet was being held. Basically, there were more young people. Most of them were epic, grandmaster, and legendary professionals. They were all secret teams and would not appear on such occasions. This group of young people were the representatives of the major forces. They had come to support Caesar, and they would even be responsible for solving a lot of trouble for Caesar in the future. Caesar intimately put his arm around William's shoulder. No one knew if he was taking advantage of William or if he wanted to do something else. Caesar introduced William to many professionals who were drinking and chatting. When many people saw William, their gazes were a little complicated, but they smiled and greeted him. Because the trouble that William had caused had nothing to do with them. Even if they thought that William was one of their lackeys and wanted to do bad things in the dark, they would not treat William coldly on the surface. Of course, some people were born to dislike everyone. William just had to get used to it. Blackleaf Elfin Prince. Of course, I know him. In the war at the extreme north, the Dawn mercenary team became famous after that battle. They killed 4 million chosen ones in a day and won 5 orc fortresses. This is definitely a good deal. The young man who spoke took 2 wine glasses and handed one to William. Then he introduced himself. Keen Angus, a Thunder Grandmaster of Combat. William smiled and shook hands with his fellow Grandmaster. Electric sparks flashed incessantly. 6th Grandmaster in the East Region Magic Conference. I didn't expect Brother Keen to reach the epic level so quickly. The corners of Keen Angus' mouth twitched. When he withdrew his right hand, he felt as if it had been electrocuted. However, he did not expect the famous Lord of the City of Dawn to know his name. He beamed and said, "I'm a freelance professional, and I train alone. I'm 28 years old now, but I've only reached the epic level. It's still a little slow." Prince William not only controls thousands of soldiers and horses, but he's also the Lord of the City of Dawn. Even though he spends most of his time with Liwanji, he still managed to become an epic professional in just 2 years. Next, it was a process of getting to know each other. Ever since Caesar Giga obtained the right to inherit the throne, besides obtaining the support of some forces, he had also recruited many genius professionals who were completely loyal to him. Freelance professionals like Keen Angus did not have any background, and he had to rely on himself for his training. Before the Magic Conference, his life was not very good. Although the ranking was good, the resources provided by the top 4 forces were not necessarily the best. But it was different to rely on Caesar. Caesar had the support of many nobles, and now he had money. As long as he could inherit the throne, this group of professionals who did not have any support from other forces would be his subjects. William drank his wine and looked at the people around him. His eyes flickered slightly. Of course, this situation was pardonable. After all, the emperor and prince of the human empire could have many wives. Envy, right? Isn't she the daughter of the East Region Federation Chamber of Commerce's chairman, Gia? She's a very hot-tempered but very rich female cannon gunner. It seems that Caesar Giga slept with her and cheated her of her money. In the end, He did not intend to marry her. She almost went to his door with guns and cannons. I don't know what's going on. The East Region Federation Chamber of Commerce was a family-type chamber of commerce. Besides the chairman, who was a legendary professional, there were a few other legendary professionals. The Chamber of Commerce was ranked second in the Giga Empire. It was a super-rich chamber of commerce. If they wanted to go further, they could only invest in the heir to the throne. They hoped that they would make the right bet and obtain the full support of the empire. Van Sit. William looked at a tall and handsome young man. He was the son of a legendary general of the Giga Empire. In the future, he would have a place in the army. However, he died in the war with the Serafkin. Cassidin, the nephew of the East Region Mercenary Guild branch leader. He was a powerful professional who trained in both fire and water. I'm not too familiar with Ullman, but his clothes should represent the Temple of Light. But Akalu, isn't he the son of the City Lord of Chaos? The prince raised his eyebrows. The City Lord of Chaos was not simple. At the end of the Second Era, before the Giga Empire was established, the City of Chaos had already appeared in the East Region. After the Giga Empire was established, not only did they not annex the City of Chaos, they even gave it a large piece of land. The most important thing was, the City Lord of Chaos was very powerful. He was not a sage, but many sages did not want to provoke him, who was at the peak of legendary, because the City Lord of Chaos had the endowment of time and space. Everyone said that if he could become a sage, he would be one of the strongest humans. In William's previous life, he did not become a sage, but since he had not broken through since the Second Era, he probably did not have any hope of becoming a sage in this lifetime. And Akalu was definitely the son of the City Lord of Chaos when he was old. Maybe he had no hope of becoming a sage, so he gave birth to a son. He intended to let Akalu inherit his family business. But it had to be said, the genes of the City Lord of Chaos were unparalleled. Akalu did not have as many occupations as the City Lord. Time, space warrior / time, space magic, but he also had the endowment of time and space. But he used his time endowment on close combat occupations and his space endowment on magic occupations. In one sentence, Akalu, who had the cowhide gene, had a bright future in William's previous life. Although he did not become a sage, he succeeded in becoming a legendary professional. His Royal Highness glanced around and got to know most of these guys. Some of them did not support Caesar Giga in William's previous life. But now, because of the butterfly effect, the neutral City of Chaos had started to support him. Caesar Giga had many military forces supporting him. Most of them were close combat occupations. Crown Prince Peter had the support of the Magic Sanctuary and the Magic Academy. In addition, Peter was very talented in magic. Many great enchanters had high hopes for him. William started to realize that he had nothing to show off, because the forces supporting Caesar were stronger than him. But the most surprising thing was, he did not see the students and teachers of the Battle Energy Academy. Logically speaking, Caesar was from the Imperial Do-Chi Academy, so those teachers and students should be the forces behind him. But just as he was thinking, the people from the Battle Energy Academy of the Giga Empire had arrived. There were 7 or 8 of them. They were either epic or grandmaster professionals. One of them was a thunder element professional who had just reached the epic level. His aura was not stable yet. Caesar walked in front of the young man and gave him a big hug. He laughed in surprise. "Ha, I didn't expect you to become an epic after going out to train. Oh, I didn't suppress the battle energy in my body." Thor forced a smile and looked at William. William raised his eyebrows. He had mixed feelings. Was it time to put on a good show? Yes. It was not just the hands. It was the problem of both arms. Caesar obviously didn't know Thor's identity. He followed his gaze to William and introduced him. "Lord of the City of Dawn, you are also a thunder-type professional and have just become an epic expert. You two must have a lot in common." "Yes, I think so." Thor nodded. William shrugged. If he could talk, he would try not to fight. Chapter 429. William did not expect that he would meet the reincarnation of the Thunder God on such an occasion. Thor hid very well. Even though he was always struck by lightning, no one would guess that he was the reincarnation of the Thunder God. After all, The guy who was struck by lightning should be the existence that the thunder god disliked. Thor strode in front of William and stretched out his claws to shake hands. Electric sparks flashed. The best move that William had imagined did not appear, because so many years had passed and the left hand of the thunder god had become his. Thor obviously could not snatch it away. He had not exchanged the left hand previously. He had absorbed enough energy to completely strengthen his left and right arm. Did you use it well? Thor squinted his eyes and asked. Yes. William raised his head and looked very proud. Is it comfortable? Very good. The simple conversation between the two of them contained a lot of information. At one point, the Caesar people's mithril alloy dog eyes almost popped out. Then they saw William and Thor walk outside with their arms around each other's shoulders. It seemed that they wanted to have a private chat. At this moment, many people looked at Keen Angus, who was also a thunder fighter. This brother had also chatted happily with William and even shook hands with him. I didn't. It's not me. They have nothing to do with me. Keen Angus shook his head in panic, indicating that not all thunder professionals had this kind of hobby. The nephew of the president of the Eastern Mercenary Guild, Cassidon, held a glass of wine and clinked glasses with Keen. He asked curiously, Do you thunder professionals feel particularly good among yourselves? Keen Angus' face darkened. He glanced at Cassidon's and said in a deep voice, Do you want to try my electric poison dragon drill? No need. I'm a dual water and fire professional. I can support myself. Cassidon shook his head. He had a feeling that ordinary people could not understand. The banquet continued. The two left and arrived at side hall. When Thor was about to speak, William threw out a soundproof scroll, afraid that Thor would reveal something. But the side hall was not far from here. The sudden magical fluctuation stunned many people. Then many people pricked up their ears and found that they could not hear anything. This situation made people even more thoughtful. Even Caesar was a little confused. Could this hobby be real? Otherwise, there was no need to use a soundproof scroll. Then, he glanced at the Blood Moon Witch's slender legs that could not be covered. They were simply eye-catching. She sat alone in the corner, drinking wine. Her pitiful big eyes made people feel pity for her. Androgynous? Caesar touched his chin, as if he already knew something. You're the one who took my left hand? Did you take over my body again? Thor had a complicated look in his eyes. Although he didn't intend to inherit the legacy of his previous life, but after this guy dug up his grave, he appeared in front of him. This made him feel very conflicted. He really wanted to beat William up. His Royal Highness didn't know what he was thinking, but he knew that he wanted to beat him, kill him, curse him in secret, and so on. Therefore, he coughed lightly. Things are obviously not what you think. I don't know why your body came to me on its own, and let me use it. You're lying through your teeth. Are you so thick-skinned? Thor's mouth twitched. He couldn't move his body in his previous life. You are a shameless grave robber. How dare you say that my body in my previous life is cheap in front of me? Lad, you are very courageous and mischievous. William shrugged his shoulders. Look, I know you don't believe me, but it's the truth. If you don't believe me, you can ask Moses. When Thor heard the words Moses, he pinched the flesh on his thigh and could not help but ask, Do you know who Moses is? I don't know. Anyway, she's my woman, William said with a confused look. Cough, cough, cough. Thor had just swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He almost became the first reincarnated god to choke to death on his own saliva. Thor believed that William knew that he was the thunder god, because the moment the two of them met, William's left and right hands had more or less trembled, and he even had a strange connection with Thor. According to Thor's idea, as long as William was not stupid, he would know that he was digging a god's grave on the way to the grave. When William saw him, he should also know that he was the reincarnation of the thunder god. But he did not know that Moses had also reincarnated. There was no dispute that Moses was the goddess of magic. But the name Moses was the name she used before she became a god. Basically, except for a few main gods, no one knew her name at all. Ever since Moses became a main god, she had never used her original name in that long period of time. Now, this little brat in front of him said that the goddess of magic was his woman. It was even more shocking than the Pope of Light stepping into the main god realm. Thor took a few deep breaths and suddenly did not know what to say. He even asked suspiciously, "Really? Of course. Why would I lie to you?" William pointed to his handsome face. He was unparalleled in the world. The goddesses of luck and misfortune had fought over him. Thor suddenly raised his eyebrows. "That's not right. You're a half-elf. You're not an adult yet." The prince's mouth twitched. "All right, I'm not going to find Moses to expose your lies. But you'd better not talk nonsense when you're a little virgin. Even if Moses has a good relationship with you, if she finds out that you've slandered her, it's very likely that she'll skin you alive and refine your soul into a traitor of the gods, never to be reincarnated." Then the reincarnation of the thunder god continued. "You seem to have understood from the side that Moses should also be the reincarnation of a god. But since she has the intention to support you and even gave you the rest of my body, I won't interfere." Thor carefully sized up William. He realized that this guy's eyes were also the eye of thunder that he had not used because he was afraid of pain. If you were to say that Moses had not interfered, he would definitely not believe you. "Sigh, I wonder if my statue is still so handsome after its eyes are dug out." William watched him fall into deep thought and did not dare to say anything. Since this guy in front of him could imagine for the glory of the northern god, he naturally did not intend to say much. Anyway, Moses was the scapegoat. These two guys seemed to be good friends back then, so there was no need for him to say that he had dug up the grave. Finally, Thor patted William's shoulder. "The fourth era has begun. It's not easy for us reincarnated gods. Don't leak our information. Although it doesn't matter if you leak it, it's still a troublesome matter. You just stayed in the war-ending empire. Didn't the sages discover you?" William was very curious. Bang! A bolt of lightning descended from the sky and hit Thor's head. In the next second, the reincarnation of the thunder god stood up at a speed that made one's heart ache. He casually rubbed his smoking hair and coughed lightly. "You saw it. I cursed my reincarnation. Even if they guessed it to death, they wouldn't be able to imagine that I'm the reincarnation of the thunder god. Even if they think that I'm the reincarnation of a god, they will only think that I'm a small god cursed by the thunder god. As long as you're not the reincarnation of a god, the sages won't pay too much attention." William asked curiously. Thor raised his eyebrows and smiled. "You can ask Moses about this. Don't ask me." After he finished speaking, the reincarnation of the thunder god did not want to talk too much with William. He got up and was about to leave, but William hurriedly stopped him and summoned his sacred thunder incarnation. At that moment, Thor could not help but widen his eyes as he looked at the shining sacred thunder incarnation, because he sensed the aura of a newborn god from the sacred thunder incarnation. When William saw Thor's gaze, he immediately said, "Buddy, do you have any tricks to make him stronger?" Thor circled the sacred thunder incarnation several times and even punched him a few times. A few minutes later, he rubbed his aching fist, shook his head, and said, "There's no way to become stronger, but you can disguise him as a newborn god. The aura on his body is very strange." "Is this your clone?" "Yes, a very good incarnation. It might be of great use in the future." Thor wanted to leave again. He did not want to communicate with William anymore. He did not know why. He felt that if they spoke a few more words, he would not be able to help but have a good impression of William. It had to be known. He was the reincarnation of a god. He had a mind comparable to a god. Although he had lost many things in his reincarnation, the things that he had preserved were undoubtedly the most important. However, when William used that pair of sincere eyes to look at her again, she was stunned. Thor could not help but ding-dong. Prompt. Thor Thunderdome has generated 130 points of affinity with you. William laughed in his heart, but he did not show it. He only said shyly, "Let's spar? You're the reincarnation of the thunder god. I really want to see how big the gap between us is." Thor originally wanted to refuse, not because he was afraid of losing. Actually, he was very worried. William was a thunder element professional who had been taught by Moses and had obtained his body. Wouldn't it be very embarrassing if he defeated Thor? But in his heart, he thought that William was Moses' friend, and he should give him some pointers. So he reluctantly nodded. The key was that during the spar, he could take the opportunity to beat up William. That was the key reason why William agreed. Anyway, that was what Thor thought, but he did not expect that his affinity with William had increased by so much. Ding dong. Prompt. Thor Thunderdome wants to give you pointers. Mission details. Thor Thunderdome is a powerful thunder element professional. He has reached the peak of the use of the power of thunder. The longer you persevere, the higher the upper limit of your thunder element skills. If you can persevere for 30 minutes without being defeated, you will obtain one of his endowments. If you can defeat him, you will obtain 2 of his endowments. Mission difficulty, unknown. Mission reward, 4 million to 13 million experience points. Nice. William secretly clenched his fists. He had finally received a pointers type of mission. After defeating him, I can obtain 2 endowments? William narrowed his eyes. It seemed a little difficult. Even if he had the hand of the Thunder God, it might not be effective against the real Thunder God. Meanwhile, both of them found Caesar and borrowed the arena. They planned to have a face-to-face spar. Chapter 430. As the reincarnation of the Thunder God, Thor was the fastest professional to advance in the Battle Energy College of the War-Ending Empire. He advanced from the beginner level to the epic level. It took him 4 years to advance. Until now, he was only a student and not a teacher. Not only did he break the professional training record of the War-Ending Empire, but he was also known as invincible among his peers. Every time he advanced to a new level, he would challenge others. Over time, he advanced from the intermediate level to the Grandmaster level. He did not lose a single time, no matter what profession he faced. No matter what metal, wood, water, fire, earth, space, or time, even if he had both space and time, it was the same. At least, in the Battle Energy College, which had 8 million professionals, he was invincible among his peers. Although he did not participate in the Magic Conference, even the champion of the Eastern Region Magic Conference could only avoid a fight with him. He was afraid that William would steal the limelight. When everyone heard that William was going to fight with Thor, they were shocked. Many people were surprised, or they wanted to know if Thor's invincible status was true. At the same time, they wanted to see how powerful the Lord of the City of Dawn, who had just advanced to the epic level, was. Kaiser looked at the lightning rising from the ground and said, "Accolon, you are a master of both space and time. Although you were defeated as a Grandmaster, you were still able to fight Thor to a standstill. Do you think the Lord of Dawnlight City can beat Thor?" Kaiser asked without turning his head. When the son of the City of Chaos heard about the past, he felt a little sad. His father had never been defeated since the end of the Second Era. As his son, he had received his father's teachings at home and listened to the guidance of his mentor in the War-Ending Empire College. In the end, he was unexpectedly defeated by Thor. It was so sad that he almost lost his life. But many people told him not to care about the outcome, because the Grandmaster level was not enough to unleash the time and space endowments. Only by becoming a domain professional and an enchanter could one truly understand the power of space and time. Only by truly understanding the extraordinary aspects of these 2 endowments would one be able to unleash the power of these 2 types of laws. But it was a battle between 2 lightning element professionals. Speaking of who was stronger, obviously, Thor is better. I've never seen such a strong thunder profession, Accolorn said with conviction. When Cassidon heard their conversation, he had a different opinion. Haven't you heard that William might be the reincarnation of the Thunder God? During the Southern Region Magic Conference, he released the Thunder Realm at the advanced level. Which one of you can do that? As soon as he said that, everyone was speechless. Could it be a battle between the old and the new Thunder God? Rumor had it that William was the reincarnation of the Thunder God. But Thor had earned himself the title of Little Thunder God in the Eastern Territory. The 2 of them had probably never met before, but when they first met, they said a lot of things that no one could understand. Now, a fight was about to break out as soon as the discussion was over. TSK, TSK. There were a lot of things inside. William did not know what they were talking about. He was very nervous and cautious. He and Thor were both thunder professions. But when it came to the use of lightning, one was like heaven and the other was like earth. The only advantages he had were his tankiness and Saint Soul magic. Therefore, when a legendary rank magic barrier rose, it was William's body was surrounded by electric arcs, and his eyes turned blue. He shouted, "Come, let me see the demeanor of the little thunder god. Let me see how you use lightning." When outsiders heard this, they thought that William wanted to ask him for advice on the element of thunder, but Thor knew that he was just teasing him, especially when he saw how arrogant the grave robber was. He just snorted coldly and turned into a bolt of lightning, rushing toward William. The thunder god attacked. Within a radius of 100 meters, lightning flashed and thunder roared. Bolts of lightning descended from the sky. They were dense and terrifying. William had not activated the Thunder Realm, but William took out his Thunder Slash. When Thor saw this scene, he was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He raised his sandbag-sized fists and started punching William. Aura, 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 aura. The punches were fast. The roars were loud and clear. It was hard to avoid. William did not know that the Thunder God could use sound waves to attack, so he felt uncomfortable for a short period of time. It was as if William had used his weapon to attack Thor. Thor was disgusted, so Thor wanted to disgust William. Especially when Thor roared, his spit was accompanied by electric arcs that sprayed on his face. It was so annoying. But as a thunder profession, William knew that thunder professions were known for their speed. In addition, Thor was a ranger. Half of his attributes were focused on agility. In terms of movement speed and attack speed, not only was he not at a disadvantage, but he was even faster. As a result, his counterattack was not slow at all. William slashed at Thor's left arm. His abdomen was punched, and he retreated tens of meters. But this short separation, the negative effects of the thunder appeared on both of them. At this moment, both of them stopped. William sheathed his sword and stopped using the sharpness of the legendary weapon. The Thunder God nodded, indicating that he would not use his endowment, Thunder. It cannot be helped. William took out the Thunder Slash because he was afraid that the Thunder God would use the Thunder effect. If that was the case, Thor would deal a super critical hit to William every 20 seconds. The bystanders did not understand their actions, but no one said anything. In the next second, once again, the two of them were like two roaring bulls, colliding with each other amidst the lightning. Rumble. The ground cracked. It was a contest of strength between the two bulls. It was hard to tell who was better, but they raised their heads at the same time, and their eyes condensed a dazzling light. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound reverberated in the arena. Two eyes that shot out lightning at the same time confronted each other. Countless lightning bolts swept in all directions. The high temperature generated by the lightning bolts had produced plasma, which corroded a large area of the floor under their feet. TSK. Both of them are very strong and fast. But why do I feel uncomfortable? Why don't they use the Thunder Domain? Vancet suddenly asked. Keen Angus was also a Thunder Element professional. He could only smile bitterly and say, "They are both Thunder Element epic experts. They are very resistant to thunder." To them, the Thunder Domain can't cause much damage to the opponent. Instead, it will burden them. After all, activating the domain requires constant battle energy. But I don't understand. Why don't they use their skills? Guya, the daughter of the Eastern Federation Chamber of Commerce's president, asked curiously. Endowment. The Blood Moon, which suddenly said. Everyone turned to look. The Blood Moon, which did not speak again, but Keen Angus said thoughtfully, "It's just a sparring session. They don't seem to intend to use their skills. They just want to see who has better endowment in thunder. Gosh, why don't they use their skills? Little Thunder God is going all out." Thor was really angry. The Lord of the City of Dawn was sure that he did not want to experience the thunder being detonated, so he took out his weapon to spar with him. But the guy in front of him was obviously more powerful without using his weapon. Thor had expected this guy to be so intimidating. But in his previous life, Thor's fists were very strong. Both of them exchanged dozens of blows in a short period of time. Thor's whole body was bruised and swollen, and his hand bones were almost broken. He was beating himself up. It was so infuriating. So the Thunder God decided not to hide his strength anymore. He used the true Thunder Possession to grab William and ride him to beat him up. Everyone saw that Thor's body had completely turned blue and white. It seemed that his elemental body had achieved great success. This scene left everyone dumbfounded. Even Ackler sucked in a breath of cold air. But would William be afraid? He knew that Thor had many trump cards, but he was strong. He did not dare to use the unparalleled Holy Thunder. After all, the side effect was that all his attributes would be reduced by 50%. This was his trump card, but he still activated the power of the Saint's Spirit. All his attributes increased by 40%, and he resisted Thor's true thunder possession. Both of their auras increased again. One was the thunder attribute damage, the other was the massive increase in defense, and it also had a lot of true damage. The other had increased all his attributes. The intensity of the battle reached its climax. It seemed that every punch and kick from both of them had the power to destroy heaven and earth. 3 seconds passed. The enchanted metal floor within a radius of 100 meters was destroyed. Thunder liquid rolled on the ground, forming a small river. 10 seconds passed. The thunder god dodged William's fist and turned around with a spinning kick, causing William to crash into the barrier. But it did not stop. Thor seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning. He no longer had a physical body. Before William could react, he punched William's chest. Bang! A crack appeared on the barrier of the legendary Big Shot. William spat out a mouthful of blood. He did not have much resistance to the thunder attribute. Thor's thunder endowment was too strong. 70% of the thunder attribute damage was true damage. If William had not been able to recover his health points, he might not have been able to withstand it. But he did not give Thor a chance to continue punching him. He used the light of dawn on his fist and exploded with 30% of his battle energy. He punched Thor. Thor decided to block the attack head-on. With a raise of his hand, countless Thunder Warrior energy formed a light shield. Boom! The fist collided with the Thunder Shield. Thousands of lightning bolts spread across the entire arena. What was even more impressive was that the shockwave from the explosion had 80% of its power. All of it rebounded on William, causing him to break through the barrier set up by the great enchanter and fly into the palace like a cannonball. Someone was about to speak, but Caesar shook his head and told everyone to watch in peace. The two seemed to be angry and wanted to prove something. Now is not the time to stop. So be it. How much could the palace be worth? I don't know if William heard Caesar Zero's words, but when Thor rushed towards him, he suddenly burst out with Dawn Impact. Instantly, the two of them collided. William's Light of Dawn was more powerful. He pressed Thor's head with one hand and pressed Thor's body down for thousands of meters, crashing through one palace after another. But in the next second, Thor, whose body was embedded in the building, punched with both fists. His two fists turned into solid thunder fists and hit William's chest. Bang! The prince flew thousands of meters into the sky. 2 marks appeared on his chest that could not fade in a short time. His sternum exploded, but he was not convinced. So in the next second, William descended from the sky. Thor rose from the ground. When the two sides collided, in the sky hundreds of meters high, it turned into a thunder field. All the professionals in the imperial city could hear the rumbling thunder echoing through the sky. Caesar looked at the group of professionals flying over and glanced at the half-destroyed palace. He forced a smile and said, "Two friends, let's learn from each other. How much would it cost?" Caesar whispered in a voice that no one else could hear. "I'll give it to you." When Guya saw Caesar's fiancée coming over, she immediately held Caesar's arm and said sweetly. Chapter 431. Putting aside the fact that Caesar Giga was living off a woman because he was poor, his fiancée had seen it. The shocking thunderstorm had turned the sky into a sea of thunder. The sky had turned into a sea of lightning, and endless thunder and lightning were about to sweep across the land. Some great enchanters saw this and formed a space battlefield of tens of thousands of meters. They did not intend to let them return to the ground to continue their destruction. Otherwise, if this wave of thunder really fell on the ground, not only would Caesar's palace disappear, but the innocent passers-by and other buildings would also suffer. William was now completely separated from Thor for the time being. Thor's attack had instantly reduced his health points to 20%, thus activating the immortality effect of the endowment, keep going if alive. His health points increased by 500% for 30 seconds. Thor had discovered that William was about to enter a state of near death. He wanted to ride on William and beat him up, but he saw that William's injuries were recovering at a crazy speed. So difficult. Are you a half-elf or a half-devil? The Thunder God was a little confused, but the scene in front of him did not allow him to hold back. He also wanted to see if the guy in front of him was qualified to use his left and right hand, and why he was recognized by the goddess of magic. *M in it. He was not convinced. William suddenly took out his bow and arrows, intending to play with long-range attacks. Thor suddenly smiled at the prince. You can play long-range. I'll do it too. He gently clenched his right hand. Crack! A bolt of lightning seemed to descend from the universe. When the dazzling lightning struck Thor's head, a 2-meter-long lightning spear had already appeared in his hand, dazzling with electricity. All the thunder in the sea of thunder under their feet flowed through Thor's body and into the lightning spear. When Akarov saw this move, he was shocked. As a space and time professional, he had an illusion that he could not avoid it. He was not the only one who had this feeling. Some legendary professionals also looked at the lightning spear in shock. They had the same thought. Meanwhile, the fatal danger that William felt was more than 100 times stronger than the others. He immediately used the holy light shield and covered his entire body with dozens of light shields. But the moment the lightning spear in Thor's hand was thrown, the lightning spear had already pierced William's chest, ribs, and heart. William's health points, which had just recovered by more than half, were less than 10,000 under this critical attack. He half knelt in the sky and spat out a mouthful of blood that was flickering with electric arcs. He watched helplessly as the lightning spear that had stabbed into his chest slowly disappeared. It was a spear that pierced through space and time. It was a spear that would hit its target as soon as it was thrown. Thor looked at him faintly and didn't say anything. Blocked a shot? Was he already on the verge of death? Very average. However, just as he was about to turn around, rich life energy appeared in William's body again. He was like an unkillable cockroach. He stood up again. There was blood at the corner of the prince's mouth. The resurrection armor had once again restored him to full health. At this time, he glanced at the countdown on the information panel. There were still 13 minutes left before he could persist for 30 minutes and obtain a talent. Therefore, even if he had to use all of his trump cards, he had to persevere to the end. You really can take a beating. Thor looked at him curiously. William in front of him didn't fall for tricks, because tricks weren't even as fast as his HP regeneration. But every time Thor used a big move, William could recover his HP at a faster rate. He was like a titan with strong vitality. But just when everyone thought that William had used up all of his trump cards and could no longer block Thor's attack, unparalleled Holy Thunder. Activate. All attributes increased by 80%. Attack power, defense power, and movement speed increased by 60%. This was the unparalleled Holy Thunder that had not been upgraded to the maximum level. But at this moment, it was enough. Everyone saw William's aura skyrocket again. It was as if he had transformed from a struggling sheep into a cute tiger. His aura was monstrous. Accompanied by a sonic boom, he rushed in front of Thor. Before Thor could react, he punched Thor's face. Bang! Half of the Thunder God's face was smashed out of shape. At the moment when Thor was about to fly out, William grabbed his arm and pulled him back. His right hand was like a pile driver as he madly hammered Thor's head. Pom, 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 pom. Teeth flew out, and blood spurted out. After William activated the unparalleled Holy Thunder, each of his punches carried exaggerated power and true damage. In just a few seconds, Thor was like a large sandbag. His head was full of bumps, and his handsome little face was full of bumps and bumps. Let go! Thor shouted angrily. He had the ability to resist. He was just surprised that William had so many transformation skills. He was careless and allowed William to find an opening, especially since Thor was the Lord of Thunder in the God's world. He had too many trump cards. Just after he finished shouting, everyone saw hundreds of Thunder clones rushing out of Thor's body. Those thunder clones covered the entire sky. At the same time, they attacked William. Each of the thunder clones had the strength of an ordinary epic thunder professional. In particular, the duration of these thunder clones was far longer than William had imagined. Just like that, William did not have the upper hand for a few seconds before he was beaten up by countless thunder clones. This time, he became a sandbag. The group of thunder clones had found a sense of rhythm, and he could not fight back. Next, the onlookers saw the Lord of the City of Dawn hugging his head and curling up his legs. He allowed the group of thunder clones to beat him up, because no matter what, after William activated the unparalleled Holy Thunder, his defense increased by 60%. In addition, when his health points were lower than 50%, the Keep Going endowment would also increase his attack and defense by 50%. Then, his defense was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Now, he had 23,000 points. That was to say, besides the true damage, if the enemy's normal attack did not exceed 23,000 points of attack, not only would it cause 0 damage to William, but would also allow him to recover 4% of his health points. Thor's summoning of hundreds of doppelgangers seemed to be helping him out. But these epic thunder clones only had an average attack power of about 20,000 to 25,000 points. Because no matter how much the clones beat William up, they could only maintain 50% of his health points, and it was still slowly rising. The Thunder God was unwilling to give up. He also joined in the fight. William did not move at all. Let's fight. Even if you die from exhaustion, I won't be beaten to death. That's how tough I am. Do you want to kill me without a fatal blow? Impossible. As for this scene, it really made the onlookers drop the melons in their hands to the ground. Caesar Giga was also dumbfounded. This was the first time he had seen a fellow who did not die after being beaten up by hundreds of epic professionals. Akarov muttered to himself, "Isn't the Lord of the City of Dawn a ranger? His skin is so tough. What about the shield bearers?" A certain legendary shield bearer with sharp ears silently left the battlefield when he heard this. He couldn't help but want to cry. When he was at the epic stage, he could at most resist the attacks of 5 or 6 enemies of the same stage. Any more, and he would be dead. Compared to this ranger, he was like a little brother. Then, it was time to witness a miracle. As the reincarnation of the Thunder God, Thor did not want to continue using his trump card. He and the hundreds of Thunder clones began to beat up William inhumanely. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. This extremely inhumane beating lasted for a full 10 minutes. But no matter how hard Thor and the Thunder clones attacked, William could not be killed. In fact, William's health points were maintained at around 50%. The duration of the 30 minutes was reached. William's unparalleled Holy Thunder state was about to disappear. When Thor wanted to use his ultimate move again, William immediately stretched out his left hand and shouted, "Stop!" Thor was panting as he and the Thunder clones surrounded him. Prince William said fearlessly, "Although I can fight with you for a day, I believe that you are stronger in terms of Thunder endowment. I admit defeat. What do you mean by fighting for a day? Are you being beaten up for a day?" Thor's mouth twitched. He did not say this out loud, but he was still very unhappy. He clenched his fists and said, "Why don't you try again? If you can last for another 10 minutes, I'll give you some benefits." "No, we're just sparring. There's no need to fight to the death. These 10 minutes have proven that you're only capable of this. You can't kill me, and I can't kill you. That's enough." William shook his head like a rattle drum. He did not wait for Thor to continue speaking. He separated the Thunder clones and said to Caesar, "The sparring can stop now. It's meaningless to fight like this. Let's decide the winner next time." After he finished speaking, William shamelessly scratched open the legendary Big Shots barrier with his claw and hurriedly slipped to Caesar's side to stretch. He said happily, "The invincibility of your war-ending empire is only SOSO. It can only help me loosen up my muscles." Caesar opened his mouth, but he did not know what to say. Bang! A bolt of lightning struck in front of William. Thor came in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Are you sure? A draw is a draw. Can a real life and death duel last for 10 minutes? It's been 30 minutes, and there's no winner. Of course, it's a draw." William twitched his mouth. Then let's fight another round. I'm not interested. Don't you know that I'm going easy on you? I let you fight for 10 minutes because I want to see how strong you are. No, let's fight another round. This time I'll use 3 moves. It's boring. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat. Come back here. No, shameless villain. I'll find your old lover and let her know your character. You're dead meat. William turned his head and grinned. Go, go, go. I won't stop you. If you're capable, come to the City of Dawn. Thor was about to explode in anger. William was naturally not interested in fighting with him again, because he could tell from Thor's tone. Damn it, he was going to kill him in 3 moves. Thor should be very angry now. He could not fight again. Thor had lost his trump card. He did not know how many trump cards Thor, the Thunder God, had. It was good enough that he had an endowment.